You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion to take on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheap again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of What If Naruto Joins Digimon World. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of KitsuneDragon on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Previously on the series, I had a nightmare and I was wondering if it wasn't too much trouble. If I could lie down with you? Gatomon asked. Dorumon seemed to have woken up a bit more from the question, but saw the look of need and fear in her crystal blue eyes. Dorumon's gaze softened and he nodded. Sure, and then Gatomon immediately latched onto him like a child would a blanket or a stuffed toy. Dorumon slowly developed a blush as blood rushed to his face, but then he sighed. He then positioned himself so Gatomon was lying on his chest. Then his tail wrapped around her small feline waist and the two fell asleep. The toilet flushed and Naruto stepped out after using the lavatory. However, before switching off the light he noticed the light shining on the sleeping Digimon. Dorumon was lying down on his back, with Gatomon's head resting on his chest. Their tails were slightly intertwined, with Dorumon's being long enough to be able to do that and also be wrapped around the cat Digimon's waist. Then he saw Dorumon's left arm wrapped around her shoulders and Gatomon's left hand being held by Dorumon's right. It was a cute little picture in the mind of the blonde shinobi and he smiled warmly before turning off the light. Dorumon, you have just found someone else to protect and thus ... you have become that much stronger, the blonde thought before he retired to the land of dreams just like the other two Digimon. Now, about 3 weeks since Gatomon's arrival, Dorumon had taken the liberty to explain the workings of the real world to the feline Digimon. It took quite a while, but Gatomon was able to wrap her mind around the fact that things were different from that in the digital world. Due to spending so much time around each other, Gatomon immediately became best friends with Dorumon. While Naruto was at school, Dorumon and Gatomon were lounging on the couch watching the television screen, which was showing an episode of the actual Digimon television show. It amazes me just how anatomically correct these humans have made us in this program, Gatomon said. Dorumon nodded, not really caring. After all, he was made of the old interface, the prototype Digimon before all Digimon were made. To put it in simple terms, Dorumon was actually one of the first few Digimon, being made before the sovereigns themselves. So Dorumon, Gatomon asked. The fur-covered dragon turned to his feline companion in acknowledgement. Hi, so what else do you do in this world other than eat and watch this television? She asked. Dorumon shrugged. Well, I usually wait until Naruto gets home from school so then we can go out and look for any bio-emerging Digimon, he explained. Gatomon nodded. I see. She paused. So do you and Naruto do any kind of training in this world in order to hone your combat skills? Dorumon seemed a bit taken back by the question. Well, Naruto and I usually fight each other when there are no Digimon to fight. We go on the rooftop of the apartment complex and fight there since no one ever goes up there. Also, it is relatively safe since Naruto made a sound barrier seal and an invisibility seal on the roof so one will notice, Dorumon explained, before asking, why so curious all of a sudden? Because I want to fight you, she replied. Dorumon's eyes bugged out of his head momentarily. Really now? He asked. The feline Digimon curtly nodded. Hi, my battle skills have dulled a bit since I have arrived, as you and Naruto allow me to no longer roam free since people will know that I am, as you put it, a child in a Digimon costume due to certain characteristics, only allowing me to roam at night, she replied. Dorumon's orange eyes stared into her crystal blue ones before he smirked. Okay, let's do it, he said. Gatomon nodded and followed the dragon Digimon out of the door before shutting the door closed. Dorumon led Gatomon up a few flights of stairs, and since the apartment complex was only 2 stories high, there weren't many occupants in the building and none of them really took notice of the 2 digital monsters walking up a multitude of stairs to the roof. The 2 Digimon arrived at a green door and Dorumon turned the handle that revealed the gray floored roof, which was open to the blue sky. A large iron fence outlined the roof so that people would not fall off it. Gatomon took a deep breath of fresh air before she followed Dorumon and stood in the center of the square roof platform. The 2 Digimon stared at each other before stepping away from each other. They bowed to each other in a respectful way that warriors do before doing battle. They shifted into their respective battle stance. Dorumon spread out his legs, his left ahead of his right, and he was hunched over to provide less air resistance when he was to begin movement. His forearms twitched as his claws were ready to attack his opponent at any moment's notice. Gatomon was crouched on all fours and her fangs bared, her pupil changing from rounded to slitted, her tail flicking back and forth. The wind lightly blew through the air between the two combatants before they growled at each other and charged towards each other. Dorumon aimed a slash at her face, but the cat Digimon blocked it with her large forepaws before aiming her own claws. Dorumon blocked it and the claws interlocked with each other, causing sparks to form. The two Digimon landed on the ground. Dorumon quickly detached his claws from Gatomon's before sweeping her legs out from under her, sending Gatomon to the floor. But Gatomon rolled backwards to avoid the claws that were brought down on her head. The claws impacted with the ground and Gatomon aimed a headbutt to her opponent, sending Dorumon skidding backwards slightly. Gatomon then punched the dragon Digimon in his snout before spinning to build momentum, and then kicking Dorumon's face before sending out a solid uppercut that sent Dorumon slightly off the ground. Dorumon used the slight lift-off to perform a backflip, which allowed him to land a solid kick to Gatomon's chin and landed firmly on his feet. Dorumon quickly spun to the side as Gatomon intended to slash at him with her claws, but Dorumon quickly dodged them before planting a knee in her stomach. Gatomon's eyes widened as the wind was knocked out of her lungs. Dorumon then spun on his heel and his tail slapped her face before he grabbed her by her throat and heaved her away. Gatomon landed on her feet and coughed a bit as she regained air in her lungs. "Not bad," she commented, teasing the young dragon. "Not too bad yourself," Dorumon replied with a smirk. The dragon and cat Digimon then rushed at each other and began a small melee battle before Dorumon was able to see an opening and took it. He slashed across her chest with his claws. Growling, Gatomon glared at the dragon Digimon as she noticed the 3 slash marks on her fur. "Metal shoot," he yelled and then took to the skies before raining down a hailstorm of metal spheres. Gatomon used all of her agility, reflexes and speed to avoid the metal meteors before she jumped and landed on one of the spheroids and used it to aid her in reaching Dorumon's location in the sky before leaping high above him, and then her paw glowed with a whitish hue. Lightning Paw. The shining claws slammed down on Dorumon's skull with momentous force, causing the dragon to yell out in pain before he descended to the ground. He managed to right himself and land on his feet before settling into a crouch so as to absorb the shock from landing so forcefully. The orange-eyed dragon rubbed his cranium and looked as his feline training partner stared at him. The 3 claw marks on her body now healing due to the somewhat rapid healing rate that all Digimon possess. "That really hurt, Gatomon," he whined. "Well, in a real fight, an enemy wouldn't hesitate to kill you," Gatomon said with a monotone. Having lived most of her life in the digital world, Gatomon possessed the ability to change her personality from one of friendly and gentle to harsh and cold when on the battlefield. "True, but you're not an enemy," the dragon Digimon replied. "I see your reasoning for holding back." Gatomon stared into the orange-colored orbs of her best friend and smirked. "But I have no intention of doing the same," Dorumon gulped. "Oh dear, this is going to be painful," he thought as Gatomon rushed him. With Naruto, the blonde sighed as he watched Mr. Kazuma talk about William Shakespeare during their literature period. "Who care about this guy? William shakes a spear. He won't help people get far in life," the whisker-cheeked shinobi thought. He rolled his sapphire eyes within their sockets as he was bored out of his mind. "I hope Gatomon and Dorumon are doing okay," he added. "That little dragon must be having so much fun." Back with Dorumon. "This is not fun," he thought as the violet-furred dragon dodged the sharp claws of his female Digimon friend. "Come Dorumon, stop dodging and fight back for once," said the feline digital creature. Dorumon's sweat dropped. "Well, I wish I could, but you won't give me a chance," Dorumon replied. Gatomon then crouched down and swept Dorumon's legs out from under him and sent him crashing to the ground. He then rolled to the side as Gatomon jumped in the air. "Nico kick," she yelled, and then her glowing foot created a small crater in the roof as Dorumon avoided the blow. He then opened his maw and fired 7 metal projectiles. Metal shoot. Gatomon managed to avoid 6 of them, but the 7th quickly struck her in the stomach, sending her flying back and crashing into the fence. Gatomon fell to her knees and panted. Dorumon then got a worried look and walked up to her. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, tilting his head to the side. Gatomon panted and nodded. "Yeah, just knocked the wind out of me is all," Gatomon said. Dorumon sighed and then he was suddenly socked in the snout before Gatomon kicked him away. The dragon Digimon rolled on the ground and lay there before sitting up. "That was not fair, I wasn't ready," he yelled out. Gatamon chuckled and stood to her feet and played with her whiskers. "Oh, come on big boy, you're not too tired are you, or are you going to give and admit defeat at the hands of a girl?" she teased. She laughed, but Dorumon's eyes quickly went slitted at the blow to his male pride, and then he took off. Hyper-metal. He took off and slammed full force against Gatamon, sending both Digimon tumbling down onto the ground before stopping with Gatamon lying down with Dorumon straddling her waist and his claws holding down her own as she lay there with shock at Dorumon's move. The violet-furred dragon panted, his sharp teeth visible as he stared into Gatamon's eyes. After about a minute of remaining in that position, they realized that they were in said position, and with blushes on their faces, the two quickly separated and dusted themselves off. "Good fight," Dorumon said, and then turned away to walk back to the room. Gatamon nodded. "Yeah, same to you," Gatamon said. However, as she took a few steps forward, her legs buckled and she fell to the floor. Dorumon turned back and gasped in shock at seeing Gatamon on the ground clutching her snow-colored head. "Gatamon, are you all right?" he asked, but his words fell on deaf ears as she felt a strange feeling in her skull. It felt as if her skull was going to split open and then her pupils dilated. And unknown to her, the markings on her tail ring seemed to glow a soft yellow. An image formed in her mind's eye. The image from her dream, the angel Digimon Lucemon. She would recognize that digital signature anywhere now, even in her mind. The small angelic Digimon was facing off against two figures, but they were clouded in shadow so Gatamon could not recognize them. One seemed human-like while the other seemed to be a large reptile with large wings. The dark angel chuckled as he stared at the two figures. "You think that you two can stop me? No one can." Lucemon spoke in a soft, pure voice, but behind the pureness Gatamon could hear the evil and dark desires that were held within them. "Yes, we will, and we will not rest until we destroy you for good," Lucemon, two voices yelled. Gatamon watched from her mind's eye, and those voices sounded familiar, but she couldn't place them because they sounded strangely distorted for some reason. "Please, I know your every move, your every attack, because I've had a spy watching you for quite a while, my young friends," Lucemon said with a chuckle. The two figures seemed to growl in anger. "What spy? No one on our side even knows of you, much less sided with you," the human-like figure yelled. The dark angel chuckled again, but this time a bit louder. "You naive fools, the spy has been here amongst you this entire time, allowing me to watch through their own eyes while I observed you in silence." Lucemon paused. "The spy is none other than..." The image swirled and Gatamon gasped before seeing Dorumon's face looking down at her. "Gatamon, you spaced out," he exclaimed. "Are you okay? Maybe our little spar took a bit more out of you than we thought." Gatamon shook her head and then stood to her feet, but she fell to her knees again and seemed to gasp slightly. It seems as if the mental images drained her of her strength. Dorumon frowned before picking Gatamon up and then flipped her so that her back rested comfortably in his arms as he carried her bridal style. "What the hell are you doing?" she asked with a mild glare. Dorumon eyed her warily. "I'm carrying you, obviously. You're too tired to walk apparently," the young dragon said. The cat Digimon huffed, but then wrapped her hands around the dragon's neck so as to not fall off as he carried her, a slight pinkish hue finding its way to her cheeks. "Fine," she mumbled. Dorumon chuckled and then opened the door with his tail before descending down from the roof to their apartment room. As they entered the apartment using the spare key that was hidden in a seal-protected compartment of the wall that only Naruto and Dorumon could open, Dorumon set Gatamon on the couch, allowing her to rest her head on the pillow that was on said couch. He then brought her a glass of water and handed her it. "Arigato, Dorumon," Gatamon said with a small smile at him. Dorumon nodded, but smirked in return before turning away. Gatamon sighed as she watched the violet dragon's retreating form. "What was that scene in my mind, and what does it mean? Time skip, end of school." Naruto sighed in relief as the bell rung for the end of school. He then passed Takato and Henry as he walked out of the school's main entrance before backpedaling to talk to them. "Hey Naruto," the two younger Tamers greeted the older blonde Tamer. Naruto nodded in acknowledgement. "Hey," he replied. "So, what's up?" Henry asked. Naruto shrugged. "Not much. Dorumon and I have been training and I have managed to keep my grades just above average. And speaking of training, how are Gilman and Terrierman doing?" the blonde questioned. "They are both fine," the two said. "Gilman is taking a break from training and is expanding his shed, and by expanding I mean he dug a really big hole in the back wall and a large hole in the floor," Takato said. Naruto and Henry's sweat dropped at that. "And as for Terrierman, he's been telling me momentai every time I ask him to go and do something constructive with his time," Henry sighed. "I see. So I'm guessing he's been P-Wincess P-Wetty Pants this entire time," Naruto guessed. "That's pretty much what's happening right now," the Chinese Tamer said. Naruto nodded and then looked at his watch. "Well, I gotta get going. Dorumon's probably waiting on me with Gato." Naruto paused before becoming silent and turning away. Takato and Henry looked at Naruto and then each other before shrugging, probably something he didn't want to mention. Phew, I nearly blew it there. I forgot that I had to keep Gatam a secret from the other, well, except Rika because she was there. Gatam seems a bit off and I don't think exposure to other Digimon would be good for her. Besides, Doruman the Whisker Mark Tamer thought as he walked back to the apartment. Naruto's apartment outside the door. Naruto dug his hands into his pockets as he searched for the key. He found the bronze-colored key and was about to stick it into the keyhole when he began to hear strange noises from inside the apartment. He quickly paused and then leaned in closer, using his advanced hearing to listen in on Doruman's and Gataman's conversation. "Oh come Doruman, please just let me suck on it," Gataman said. "Nanny, no one touches my private property. Please, I'll be very careful and won't bite it much." Naruto's eye twitched as he heard the conversation. Then he heard Doruman sigh in defeat. Gataman must have used the puppy dog eyes on him. "Just 1 minute please," he heard the cat Digimon beg. Doruman sighed again. "Alright, but only for 1 minute, after that I'm taking it back." And Naruto heard enough and stuck the key into the keyhole and quickly turned it before opening the door. The two Digimon gasped in surprise at Naruto barging in. "Okay, what the fuck is going on? I heard strange noises and disturbing conversation." Naruto bellowed as he took the key out of the hole and shut the door with a loud bam. He then blinked and saw Doruman holding a cherry-flavored lollipop in his claws and was handing it to Gataman, who snatched it with cat-like speed before sucking on it with childish glee. Doruman looked between Gataman, his lollipop, and Naruto, but decided to focus on his tamer. "Okay, what the hell are you talking about?" the dragon Digimon asked. Naruto paused. His mouth hung open as he stared at the lollipop before Gataman removed it from her jaw and put it in Doruman's. Naruto closed his mouth and turned towards the bedroom. "Nothing, say absolutely nothing," he thought. Doruman thought for a bit as he watched Naruto place his bag on the floor in their bedroom. Then the cogs began to turn as he wondered what Naruto thought was so disturbing. He relayed the conversation he and Gataman had and thought about it from Naruto's perspective, and after a few seconds, things clicked. His teeth gritting together so hard, the lollipop in his mouth shattered into pieces of artificially sweetened candy. He spat out the lollipop stick and growled. "You pervert, how could you think of Gataman and I doing that?" he roared. Doruman stalked his way towards his tamer and growled. The blue-eyed shinobi turned and looked down at his partner and chuckled nervously. "Hey, it's not my fault. All of my senseis were perverts," he said in his defense. "Strike one," Doruman growled. Naruto looked around as he thought of another excuse. He knew he could easily defeat the dragon Digimon, but he didn't want to destroy his apartment. That and it would disturb the neighbors, and also an angry Doruman was very dangerous. Coming third to an enraged Tsunade and Rika. "It's Senen's fault. He gave an Ika Paradise book to read and I was bored and he made me do it," the blonde said. Doruman paused. The excuse was plausible, and having been told of Naruto's former sensei Jiraiya, he was safe for now. "Fine, you're free, but never make that assumption again. Gataman's my friend and I care about her too much to let her do something like that," the dragon growled. Naruto nodded slowly and backed away from the dragon as Doruman's claws began twitching. "Okay, I won't do it again," Naruto said. Gataman watched the entire thing and paused as she also began to think of what had caused Doruman to go into such a rage. The conversation she and Doruman had was instantly being played through their mind, and due to having lived in a world where certain things had to be known to survive, Gataman immediately blushed at having realized what Naruto thought, but then blushed even more when she heard what Doruman had said earlier. "He cares about me." A smile graced the feline's lips, and then she edged away from the door frame before crossing her arms as Doruman walked out, mumbling things about perverted shinobi and how Gataman was a friend or something like that. The dragon Digimon turned to face Gataman when he saw his angry expression still there, but left as he saw the smile on her face. "What?" he asked. Gataman simply leaned forward and Doruman leaned back as his eyes widened from the close proximity between his and Gataman's faces. "Gataman, what are you doing?" he asked. Gataman smirked. "It seems somebody has a soft spot for little Almi," she said with a feline smile showing all of her teeth. Doruman gulped and backed away, slowly. Okay," he said, and then went into the kitchen that was adjoined to the living room and took out a slice of bread from the bread box. However, Gataman didn't really see the conversation ending, so she climbed up on the counter and crossed her legs and eyes Doruman, thus making him feel very uncomfortable eating his bread. "Gataman, why are you looking at me like that?" he asked. Admitted Doruman looked confused. "Admit what?" Gataman sighed and then mumbled something about the stupidity of males. Then again, Digimon aren't designated into genders, but no one really cares anymore, Gataman thought. Doruman looked confused as Gataman jumped off the kitchen counter and walked towards the couch where she began to watch television, thus confusing Doruman even more. "Admit what? Did I do something wrong?" he thought, and then shook his head before settling himself next to Gatam and watched the TV with her, and then noticed her glancing at him before pouting, which he thought appeared to be cute, but still confusing. I will never understand girls, he thought. Meanwhile with Rika. Rika was walking home from school and was looking at the ground. Suddenly she felt as if someone was watching her. Come on Rika, there are at least 10 people walking behind you, why are you so jumpy? She asked herself. However, the feeling of being watched began to bring a fear in her heart. The phantasmal image of 2 icy blue claws formed behind her and nobody noticed this. However, just as she turned around they vanished as quickly as they had appeared. Rika gasped and caused some of the people who were walking behind her to stare at her oddly, but brushed it off and walked past the redhead. Rika then rushed home and past her grandmother's room. "Oh hey Oba-chan," she called out. Seiko nodded as she drank her tea, knowing Rika would never reply when she would ask how her day was. Rika then went into her room and changed into her regular garb before sitting at the table in her room. What was that? She thought. She then walked outside and walked towards her grandmother. "Oba-chan?" she asked. The elderly Nanaka woman looked up from the magazine she was reading. "Hi, Rika-chan," she asked. Rika gulped slightly and looked at her grandmother. "Oba-chan, do you ever have the feeling that someone is watching you?" she asked. Seiko looked confused. "Whatever do you mean, Rika-chan? You mean figuratively or literally?" "Both actually," the fiery-haired girl replied as she shifted nervously. Seiko seemed to notice her granddaughter's distress and quickly replied. "Well, if literally, then it could be that someone is following you, and if you ever do, run like hell as if the devil itself were upon you," Seiko said, shocking Rika that her grandmother used a bad word before she continued. "But in the figurative sense, there are those that believe spirits are real and they follow us every day to warn us of impending danger or to cause the danger upon whomever they are following. Rika, these feelings are merely psychological attacks on the mind as the brain receives certain impulses due to the senses realizing there is danger nearby, like a sixth sense for danger. Therefore, if you ever feel it, just pray and make sure that the spirit that follows you is the one that aims to protect you." Rika nodded and then turned to leave. Seiko looked at the retreating back of her granddaughter as she turned around the corner. "Protect her guardian Kitsune and you as well, if you can." Naruto. Early evening Hypnos HQ. Riley and her assistant were typing furiously on the computer keyboards as they had destroyed numerous wild ones using Yamaki's Yugoth program. Only certain wild ones being able to break free from the digital realm by having enough energy to destroy the Yugoth program. And such an incident was about to occur now. Riley had managed to spot another wild one appearing in the West Shinjuku area. "Yamaki, sir, we got another one," Riley informed her boss. "Do what we did to the rest of them," Yamaki said, playing with his cigarette lighter. Riley nodded, but her fingers were getting tired from endless typing. "They don't pay me enough for this shit," the red-haired computer tech thought as she pressed the glowing violet button and Yugoth was deployed. The spiraling circles neared the red dot. But then they noticed what looked like projectiles of data being fired at Yugoth on the data representation screen and Yugoth was destroyed. "Sir, Yugoth has failed. The wild one is bio-emerging," Riley announced. Yamaki gritted his teeth together. "Kyuso." Meanwhile, somewhere on a random street, Rika was coming back from her walk around town when she felt that eerie chill she felt earlier today. She then performed a small prayer her grandmother had taught her. "May I be forever safe in the darkest of nights. May the angel protect with the holy light, and forever may I be in the warm embrace of my guardian angel until I reach death's gates." Rika ended the prayer, but she still felt the presence behind her, like the Arctic wind was blowing through her body. Phantasmal claws, both an ice blue color, formed out of thin air and reached to grab the red head, but at the last second she turned her head and the hands vanished. Rika felt the cold presence leave, but then with a panicked look on her face she took off for home. She reached her house and entered her room and shut the door. She was panting hard from running. "Renamen," she called her partner's name. The yellow fox blurred into existence. "Yes, Rika?" Renamen asked. Rika turned with fright evident in her amethyst-shaded eyes, something that surprised the Digimon to no end. "Is Rika scared?" Renamen looked as her partner pointed to the door. "Renamen, is there someone out there?" she asked. Renamen shook her head. "No." "Well, check again," Rika said with a more forceful tone. Renamen nodded and then slid open the door and looked up and down the hall before closing the door. "Rika, there is no one there. Maybe you're seeing things. You've been running all the way home and the exhaustion is making you tired," Renamen suggested. Rika growled. "What?" "Renamen, I know what I felt. There's something out there," Rika yelled. "Rika, don't worry, I'm here to protect you," Renamen assured the fiery-haired female. Rika's teeth gritted together as she glared at the blonde fox. I don't need protecting. I don't need you, Rika yelled. Renamon's blue eyes widened. Never in her entire life had she thought Rick could say something so cold to her. The look in her amethyst eyes added salt to the wound. Rika opened the door and stormed out, saying one last thing. I don't need anyone. The door slammed shut and Renamon stood there still frozen from Rika's outburst before fading out of the room. With Rika ran down the streets of Shinjuku before reaching the subway. She walked throughout the subway to blow off some steam. She probably shouldn't, he yelled at Renamon like that. But she didn't always need protecting. Rika continued to walk and avoiding the many people that walked her way, and continued to walk. But then she felt that chilling feeling. The unknown phantasm of two arms appeared again behind her and reached for her body. She reached into her pocket and felt the cloth-wrapped kunai he had given her a few weeks ago, just a few days after they met Gatomon. It was a small knife, about the half the size of an original kunai, but just as sharp, and was infused with many seals for certain protection measures, including for her own protection. Flashback 1 week ago, nighttime. Rika had just come back from shopping for groceries for her grandmother and was now heading back home. Upon doing so, she turned a corner and accidentally bumped into someone. Both Rika and the other person fell to the ground along with the groceries, but before they could fall, the unknown person managed to get up and catch the bag before it did so. Gomen Nesai Ha Rika-chan. Rika's eyes widened at the familiar voice. She saw the mop of spiky blonde hair atop the head of the blue-eyed shinobi Tamer. Whiskers. Rika tilted her head in confusion. Naruto handed the bag of groceries back to the red-haired girl, who took them with a nod. Fancy meeting you here, how are things? Naruto asked with a foxy grin. Rika kept up an impassive look and nodded. Fine, she replied. How is Gatomon? Mildly concerned for the feline Digimon. Naruto shrugged. She is okay, I guess. Dorumon has been spending time teaching her how to adjust to the real world, and also we've been helping and explaining the differences between what happens between two individuals when they meet. Naruto explained. Rika and Naruto began to walk towards Rika's house as Rika was heading there, and Naruto was because he knew Rika would ask. How does Gatomon have trouble understanding that? She asked. Naruto grinned sheepishly. Well, you see, Rika-chan, Gatomon has grown up surrounded by beings that want to kill her and absorb her data. Therefore, she has built the instinct to kill anyone that meets her face to face other than myself, you, Renamon, and Dorumon. Naruto said. Furthermore, as a result, she has this strange aura around her, and therefore I have advised Dorumon that she must remain indoors at most times and only allowed to leave during the night, when people won't notice a bipedal cat that looks nothing like a dress-up costume walking through town, and because I'm not sure I completely trust Gatomon because of that weird aura. Rika nodded. I see. She remained quiet for most of the time, but as they passed an alleyway, Naruto and Rika were suddenly dragged into the alleyway when two pairs of arms reached out and grabbed them. Naruto and Rika looked out of the corners of their eyes and saw two thugs. Naruto observed their physical build, and based on the tightness of their grip, he guessed the two thugs were about 18 years old. One was slightly taller than the other, but both seemed to be around average build. Their clothes indicated they were doing it for the fun of it and were not from any broken homes, as they didn't have any extremely ripped or dirty clothes, which would indicate a lifetime of living on the streets. Naruto rolled his eyes as one thug held him in a master lock. He's faced a giant snake, a Sannin, another Jinchuriki, and that traitorous team. He could surely handle a common street thief. Meanwhile, the other thug took Rika's groceries and threw them away, only for the two thugs to not hear the sound of the bag falling on the ground. The two 15-year-old thugs slightly turned their heads and saw no one and the bag gone. The thugs shrugged before they pinned the two against the wall. Rika grunted slightly, but Naruto made no sound but glared at the two with his icy blue eyes. Well, look what we have here, the taller of the two thugs said with a snicker as he held down Rika, a cute girl and her blonde baka of a boyfriend. What do you think we should do, Jingo? Take the girl and have some fun, the thug said with a snicker and gaining a perverted gleam in his eyes as he looked over Rika's figure. The thug identified as Jingo smirked. Why not, Ryu? Go and take care of the boyfriend and I'll prepare our guest for the first-class treatment she will receive, Jingo said as he caressed Rika's body. Rika struggled against the man's grip, but it was too strong as he held her by the throat with one hand and was rubbing her sides with the other. Tears of fear of being raped filled her mind. Ryu nodded and then dragged Naruto a few feet away and slammed the blonde against the dumpster there and held out a pocket knife. Seems you're gonna be injured for a while we have some fun with your girlfriend over there, Ryu said. Naruto stood up, but then Ryu punched Naruto in his stomach and kicked him in the face before slamming Naruto's back against the dumpster. Rika's muffled screams reached their ears as Jingo continued to feel her up, waiting for Ryu before they would begin. Ryu then held his knife and aimed for Naruto's chest, but before it could reach the 18-year-old man found his wrist wrapped in a grip as hard as steel. He tried to yank it free, but his hand refused to budge. Red chakra flowed out of Naruto as his crimson eyes stared into Ryu's green ones. I wouldn't mind if you only came for me, but to ape a 12-year-old girl, especially one who is my friend, that is unforgivable, Naruto growled. Ryu's eyes held fear as Naruto's crimson eyes bore into his soul. The image forever burned into his mind. Please. Didi, don't hurt me. It was all Jingo's idea. Really? Ryu cried in fear. Naruto growled and then snapped Ryu's wrist like a twig before hoisting the man up and slamming him into the wall, and then landed a fist in his stomach. Ryu gasped before he blacked out from the pain. You may live to see another day. Your friend, on the other hand, red chakra created an aura of fire around Naruto as he neared Jingo, whose grip on Rika was still holding. He was now about to take off the red-haired girl's shirt when another hand came and grabbed it before yanking it away with enough force that Jingo was thrown into a wall. Rika fell and Naruto caught her. Rika-chan, are you okay? He asked. Rika nodded, but then noticed Naruto's changed features. Even in the darkness of the alley, mixed with the darkness of the night, she could still see them. His whisker marks darkened and jagged, his canines lengthened into fangs, his nail became claws, and his once sapphire eyes were now a deep crimson, and a vertical pupil completed the image. And Naruto, you look. Naruto held a finger to her lips. Kyuubi may be a demon, but he's a demon with a heart. Besides, I'm in control, so I will not kill these men. Naruto had faced Rika, but neither noticed the silent movement of Jingo moving up a wall. Jingo carefully reached into his pocket and pulled out a gun. Jingo smirked and aimed it at Naruto's revealed back. Jingo smirked and pulled the trigger. The spring in the gun forced the bullet to move from its casing and speed through the barrel at speeds of over 300 meters per second. The mixture of bronze and lead flew through the air, and Naruto turned around in time to see the orange flash as the gun was fired. Rika's eyes widened as Naruto was shot in the back. Rika gasped as Naruto grunted in pain. Whiskers, Naruto, come on, don't die on me. Rika pleaded as Naruto bled from his back. The bullet had reached somewhere near his kidneys any nearer, and he would have lost his right kidney. Naruto grunted in pain. Don't worry, I will protect you, just let me and Kyuubi finish this guy, Naruto said. Rika nodded with a tear slowly falling from her eye. Naruto nodded and smiled, showing his sharp teeth. The bullet was suddenly forced out by Kyuubi's yaokai, and the wound healed from the near kidney muscle tissue to the skin on his back. Naruto then stood up and cracked his neck and turned to see Jingo standing there in disbelief, and the crimson eyes of one angry Kyuubified Naruto was not something you would want to see in your dreams. No one hurts Rika-chan, Naruto said as he flexed his claws. Jingo fired another bullet, but Naruto's eyes were somehow able to see it coming in slow motion. Probably Kyuubi making his adrenaline rush into his brain in order to perceive danger better. Naruto then raised a clawed hand and sliced the bullet in half, the two sides flying off and impacting with the wall, and not injuring Rika or him in any way. Naruto continued to walk. Jingo fired shots, but Naruto continued to stop them until he reached Jingo, and grabbed the man by his throat and then took the weapon and crushed it with his bare hands. Naruto smiled evilly, but then frowned. I have protected Rika-chan and you have a family to go to. I will not kill you. But now that I have your scent, pull a stunt like this again and you will find my eyes to be the last thing you see before I crush your throat. Understood. The blonde growled, his eyes seeming to pulse, and Jingo felt a warmth near his crotch. He just pissed his pants. Naruto smirked before throwing Jingo against Ryu, who was still unconscious by the dumpster. Naruto watched the unconscious duo as Kyuubi's yaokai left his system. Naruto then turned and helped Rika up. Rika stared in shock, and to Naruto's surprise she jumped at him and enveloped him in a hug and cried into his chest. Rika sobbed and Naruto, not used to bodily contact, froze. He looked down at the red-haired girl who was probably traumatized, sobbed into his chest, soaking his shirt. Naruto then slowly returned the embrace, and the two remained like that for a while before Rika finally calmed down. Rika sniffled a bit and her eyes were slowly changing back from pink to their healthy white. "Arigato, Naruto," she whispered. Naruto heard it and nodded and let the young girl go before he released a sharp whistle, and a cageman appeared out of nowhere and dropped down from above with Rika's groceries in hand. "You're welcome, Rika-chan. Now come on, I'll walk you home," he said. The two tamers walked for a while until they reached the door that led to Rika's mansion. "Well, I'll see you around then, Rika-chan," Naruto said. But Rika quickly shot out a hand and grabbed his arm, causing the blonde to freeze before he turned and faced her. The clone had jumped over the wall and placed the groceries in Rika's room using extreme stealth before poofing out of existence. "Yes, Rika-chan. If you're worried about your groceries, don't worry. My cageman just placed it in your room," he asked. Rika looked down and let go of Naruto's arm. Really and truly arigato Naruto. I don't even want to think about what would have happened if you hadn't been there, she said. Naruto smirked and then reached into his pocket and pulled out a kunai knife wrapped in a black cloth. On the kunai's blade were a few seals in deep ocean blue. Here you go, Rika-chan, placing the kunai in one of her other hands. What's this? She asked. This is a special kunai. It has special seals that have a bit of my chakra stored into it. I made it for you. I'm still not finished with Takato's and Henry's. Anyways, if you ever need me, just throw it down on the ground and have the blade, which is made of reinforced iron by the way, will pierce the surface and release a pulse of chakra that will act as a homing beacon as well as a distress call, and I will come get you. Naruto said, I made a promise that I would protect with everything I had, Rika-chan, and I don't go back on my word. Rika held the kunai, and without even thinking she wrapped Naruto in another unexpected hug, which Naruto returned a bit more quickly, but followed by an even more unexpected kiss on the cheek. Rika backed off and smiled slightly as she saw his reaction. Totally and utterly priceless. You're a good friend, Naruto, and with that Rika left and Naruto turned and left with his hand holding his cheek and a small smirk playing on his face. End flashback. Rika looked at the kunai and was about to throw it away when she became annoyed with the chilling feeling. She turned around with an angry expression on her face. What? She yelled. Two men who were doing nothing but going to walk around her froze and blinked in surprise before looking at her confusedly. She sighed and Rika turned to the stairs so she could go home. But it was at the stairs she saw the ghostly image of a Digimon. Rika gasped and followed the phantasm before going up the stairs and looked around. She saw nobody. Come out, I know you're here, she demanded. Rika sighed, but then two arms appeared from behind her with two large clawed hands. Its right hand wrapped around her waist, the other around her mouth. However, before Rika could be peeled through the wall, she managed to grab her special kunai from Naruto, and then threw down with enough force that it stuck itself into the floor. A blue glow came from the blade as Rika was pulled into the wall. The glow grew brighter before a large pulse of blue chakra exploded from the kunai and spread throughout Shinjuku. With Renamen. Renamen was sitting on the branch of a large tree staring at the silvery white moon with a far-off look in her eyes. Then as she stared, she felt a tingle flow across her very being and an itch in the back of her mind that told her one thing: Rika was in trouble. Rika, she thought and got, but froze as she remembered Rika's words. Flashback. I don't need protecting. I don't need you, Rika yelled. Renamen's blue eyes widened. Never in her entire life had she thought Rick could say something so cold to her. The look in her amethyst eyes added salt to the wound. Rika opened the door and stormed out, saying one last thing. I don't need anyone. The door slammed shut and Renamen stood there still frozen from Rika's outburst before fading out of the room. End flashback. With Naruto. Naruto was sitting on the couch in his usual attire and got up to go and get Doruman and Gatam for a little patrolling. But he then froze as he felt a pulse of chakra enter his system, and that meant one thing. Rika-chan. He then saw Gatam and Doruman sitting on the floor playing a game of Go Fish. Guys, get up, we have to go, he said with urgency. Doruman and Gatam looked confused and laid down their cards and got up. Why, are we going patrolling again? Doruman asked with a hint of joy in his eyes. Not now, Doruman. Rika-chan needs help now, hurry up, Naruto said. Doruman and Gatam ran with Naruto to the roof of the apartment before taking long jumps as they jumped from rooftop to rooftop. Naruto, do you know where we're going? Doruman yelled as the wind blew past their ears as they roof hopped. No, but I have a feeling I know where Rika-chan is, he said. So we're going in a direction based on a hunch? Gatam asked. No, you see, I gave Rika a kunai that was stored with special seals to allow my chakra to be temporarily stored in the blade, and when it makes hard enough contact with a surface it will cause the seals to release my chakra. This was to allow me to know when the other tamers were in need of help, and the kunai would act as a homing beacon, Naruto explained. But then he caught sight of what they were looking for. Naruto, Doruman and Gatam stood atop a roof and saw a large ice wall surrounding most of the upper portion, and some of the roof area of a building which came up from underneath the ground. Probably from the subway, the blonde thought. The shinobi tamer then dropped down on the ground, pumping chakra into his legs as Doruman and Gatam landed lightly on his shoulders. People who saw the Naruto land couldn't get a good look at him because of the smoke produced from his landing, and also the fact that he took off, leaving behind a flash of gold as he raced towards the building. We're going to crash, Gatam yelled. Naruto smirked before petting Gatam's head. Have faith in me, he stated before planting one foot on the side of the building and then another before he began to running up the wall, fascinating even more of the people who saw him going perfectly up the side of the building. Luckily his speed and the height he was at caused people to now know who he was or what he looked like. Naruto then reached the area of the building that was iced over before forming a rasengan and began to shred through the extremely thick spiky ice wall. with Rika. Rika found herself in some kind of blue void that seemed to be made out of ice, causing her to shiver with her arms wrapped around herself. It's so cold. A figure then slowly emerged out of the ground behind her that turned out to be a Digimon. The Digimon was ice blue and had glowing crimson eyes, with arms that nearly touched the ground due to their length. Torn and weathered-looking wings of a similar ice were attached to his back. A skull-like pattern was on his right kneecap, and his arms along with most of his lower body was wrapped in a combination of belts and bandages. A large magenta-colored bat symbol was displayed on his chest and left boot. The Digimon then quickly wrapped his battered-looking wings around Rika, causing her to let out a gasp. The Digimon lifted her off her feet before looking down at her. "Welcome to my humble abode," Rika just asked without looking at the ice devil. "Are you a Digimon?" "Yes," Rika then asked. "So this is a digital field?" Releasing a chuckle, the Digimon just looked around before looking back down at Rika. "Exactly. Beautiful, isn't it? It suits you perfectly." Rika just looks down at the ground. "It suits me." A small grin appears on the Demon of Ice's face as he looks down at Rika. "The way treat people. How you think you're cold as ice. You have no time for warm, weak relationship. You always expect perfection from yourself and others. You demand it." Rika just absent-mindedly nodded her head before Ice Divimon continued. "I'm the only one who understands you, Rika. That is why we are destined to become partners." Rika, still looking at the ground, just says, "Partners? Us? Yes. No, I can't. I already have a partner. Renamon." Rika finishes by looking over to the side. Ruki moved her hand over her Digivice just before the Ice Devil placed his hand over hers. "I want to show you something," Ruki just said half-heartedly. "What is it?" The unknown Digimon just looked back down at Rika. "To prove I'm worthy of being your partner, I've set up a little show and tell so you can see my power for yourself." Ice Divimon then spread his wings out as ice pillars formed all around the area. Each pillar of ice had a Digimon frozen in it. "For years I have hunted hundreds of Digimon and absorbed their data. They were friends to some, maybe even partners." Rika's eyes widened hearing this before he continued, "But as you once said, they are merely stepping stones." Ruki just looked around at the Digimon trapped within the pillars of ice. "I never said that." A smirk soon revealed itself to be on the Digimon's face. "Ah, but you did. I fight to digivolve. You make your Digimon do the exact same thing." Rika just seemed to freeze before saying, "No, I couldn't see it before, but there's more to Digimon than just fighting. I would eat dirt before I ever let Renamon become what you are. A monster." The Digimon's smirk just seemed to widen at this. "Better a powerful monster than a weak nobody." However, before he could say more, the wall was suddenly blown apart and a large smoke cloud formed along with the scattering of ice particles. "Let Rika go, you demonic ice bastard," a voice growled from the smoke cloud. The two stared at the smoke cloud before it cleared, and Rika's eyes widened as she saw who her savior was. Whiskers Naruto, she thought with shock. Beside him stood Gatamon and Dorumon, both growling in rage. "Ah, another tamer, but you seem different, stronger than Rika here. Mind taking up my offer to be my tamer?" the Digimon said. Naruto's eyes flashed red and he growled. "Not on your life," Naruto said as he took out his D-Arc and scanned the Digimon of Ice. Ice Divimon, champion level. He is a sadistic mass murderer, delighting in the pain he deals on others and relentlessly killing without mercy. His attacks are Frozen Claw, Avalanche Claw and Tundra Freeze. Naruto read. Ice Divimon chuckled. "Fine then. Your life it is then. Well, remember this and remember it well, team." Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze never goes down without a fight. The shinobi tamer then took out a kunai and threw it at Ice Divimon, whose eyes glowed sapphire. Tundra Freeze. A beam of blue rocketed from Ice Divimon's eyes and froze the kunai solid in midair, including the flame which was burning a concealed explosive note. "Gatamon, we don't want you to get involved in this. This is mine and Dorumon's fight now," Naruto growled. Gatamon was about to come back with a retort, but saw the looks in their eyes and then looked at the red-haired girl and just realized something. With the addition of Rika into this fight became personal for Naruto, the feline Digimon thought, and then backed away. Naruto and Dorumon raced towards the Ice Digimon, but Ice Divimon threw Rika to the side and the girl crashed against the hard wall, eliciting a scream of pain from the 12-year-old female tamer. Naruto growled again and then flashed through hand signs. "Katen, Gaokakyu no Jutsu," he yelled, and a large fireball flew from his mouth. Ice Divimon quickly avoided it, but his eyes widened as he saw Dorumon in his face. Metal shoot, and multiple spheres of steel rocketed towards Ice Divimon. Ice Divimon flew up and avoided the barrage of steel, and then his left hand glowed a dark blue. Frozen Claw. Dorumon quickly dodged the attacks, and then he saw one attack coming directly at him. But Naruto appeared above the arm and laced a kunai with wind chakra before letting it loose. The kunai impaled Ice Divimon's hand and caused him to scream out in pain. You human filth, I'll destroy you," the Ice Devil roared as he removed the kunai from his hand and crushed it as it froze over from his touch. Outside the building, Takato and Henry along with Terrierman and Gilman were watching up at the large building with ice covering its upper structure. "So Henry, any words of advice?" Takato asked. "Yeah," Henry replied, putting on his shades as Takato brought down his goggles. "Don't get tired going up these stairs," as they entered the building and began to climb the multitude of literal stepping stones. Naruto and Dorumon dodged the many flying ice projectiles from Ice Divimon's avalanche claw. Naruto then grabbed Dorumon and spun before throwing him. The Dragon Digimon opened his maw and fired multiple metal balls at the Ice Devil. However, the enemy Digimon avoided them before grabbing Dorumon in mid-flight and then throwing him downwards. Dorumon impacted with the hard ice floor and then Ice Divimon slammed down on Dorumon's smaller body. "You team both Tamer and Digimon," said. Ice Divimon chuckled as he flew off of Dorumon, who was getting up. Naruto then channeled chakra into his feet and took off for Ice Divimon. But the champion Digimon was able to track Naruto's speed and grab Naruto around the throat as he reached him. Ice Divimon smirked before slamming Naruto into the walls, then the ceiling and then the floor. Then his claws glowed blue. Frozen Claw. The Ice Devil slashed at Naruto and Dorumon, sending them both to the ground. Naruto was slashed on his right arm, but he tried to dodge the second strike. But Ice Divimon struck out with the same hand used to injure Naruto, and slashed through Naruto's shirt and caused his side to release the red liquid of life. He formed a rasengan and rushed Ice Divimon. But the Demon of Ice quickly grabbed Naruto's wrist and slammed Naruto onto the ground before holding him up and slashing him multiple times on the stomach and arms and legs. Dorumon tried to save his partner, but received the same treatment as Ice Divimon. Dorumon was hit with a powerful uppercut before the power of the attack sent him skyward, and then Ice Divimon attacked with his frozen claws, causing Dorumon to become injured and fall to the ground beside his tamer. Naruto was bleeding from his chest and arms from the numerous cuts that Kyuubi was now working to heal. He then held both Naruto and Dorumon, and his eyes glowed as he prepared to freeze them solid. "Say goodbye, boys," the champion Digimon said. Naruto's eyes then flashed red and he grabbed Ice Divimon, causing Ice Divimon to burn somewhat from the Kyuubi's Yaokai. The Yaokai left and then Naruto and Dorumon freed themselves before rushing Ice Divimon. Ice Divimon growled before avoiding a headbutt from Dorumon and then punching Dorumon in the snout. The Dragon Digimon was then grabbed by his throat and thrown into a wall. Naruto aimed a punch at Ice Divimon, but the champion Digimon dodged it and aimed a kick to Naruto's head. But Naruto ducked and then landed an uppercut to the chin. Naruto then grabbed Ice Divimon's throat and punched him repeatedly in the face before kicking off his chest before running in a beeline, and a roundhouse kick found its way into Ice Divimon's stomach. The Digimon was sent flying back, but by spreading out his wings he stopped his movement before going back towards Naruto, and then shoulder tackled the blonde, sending him crashing into the wall near his partner. It was at this time that Takato and Henry entered the room. "What the Naruto?" the four cried out. They then turned to Ice Divimon. "You monster," Takato growled. Ice Divimon chuckled. "Why, thank you, taking the insult as a compliment." "Take him down," Takato cried out as he drew a card. Both Gilman and Terrierman rushed forward to do battle with the Ice Digimon. But then two blue beams shot forth from his eyes. "Tundra Freeze!" Ice Divimon yelled, and the attack froze the two rookie Digimon solid. "No, Gilman, Terrierman!" the two Tamers cried as they tried to free their Digimon. "Digimodify, Heat Activate!" Henry yelled, but the modification did nothing. Rika looked at the damaged Naruto and Dorumon and saw Gatamon looking in horror at the Ice Demon. "Rika, where is Renamon?" Henry asked as he tried to break the ice with a nearby rock. Rika's eyes dropped. "She's not coming. She wouldn't even if I told her to," Rika said with a somber tone. However, the ceiling blew open and there stood the blonde and white-furred fox herself. "Speak of the devil, Renamon!" the two young male Tamers yelled. Renamon said nothing and then charged forward at Ice Divimon. "Tower Paw!" she yelled as his paws were surrounded by ghostly blue flames. The fists and feet flew from all angles, but Ice Divimon dodged them all. "Frozen Claw!" the Ice Demon Digimon yelled and then struck out with his attack, striking Renamon in the stomach and then the solar plexus, followed up with two strikes to the neck and then one to the face. Renamon gasped as she fell to her knees at the might of Ice Divimon. Rika stared with shock and sorrow towards Renamon. Ice Divimon looked over his shoulder. "Why do you look at this failure of a Digimon with that look?" Ice Divimon asked. "Because she's my friend," she whispered. "Renamon's my friend." Digivolution. Renamon Digivolve too. Renamon was ensconced in a blue egg of data and her skin peeled away to show her larger, stronger form beneath a wireframe pattern. Skin then reattached itself to give form to the champion level of Renamon. The egg then exploded as Renamon's form changed to resemble a large golden and white-furred kitsune with the edges of the white fur that glowed with mystical blue flames on the paws. Instead of one tail, 8 more had sprouted out, now 9 blonde-colored tails each tipped with white fur that seemed to also glow with mystical blue flames just like her paw fur. The bottom of Kyuubimon's mouth was white and 2 purple slash marks were shown underneath her still glacial blue eyes, and a large white mane extended along the entire length of her neck. The yin-yang symbol was shown above each of her 4 legs and one lay on the center of her forehead. A white and red rope tied in a bow with 2 golden bells attached to it was wrapped around her neck. Kyubimon, also you can digivolve. Maybe now I can have a challenge, Ice Divimon commented and made a come motion with his hand. Kyubimon growled and spread out her tails, each one alight with blue fireballs. Foxtail Inferno. The 9-tailed fox Digimon yelled and then 9 fireballs flew towards Ice Divimon, but he dodged by flying up. "Where are you going, Frosty?" she asked. Kyubimon then jumped and spun in the air, surrounding herself with fire. The blue flames then took the form of a roaring serpentine dragon. Dragon Wheel. The fire dragon roared as it flew towards its target, but Ice Divimon's eyes glowed blue. Tundra Freeze. He yelled and the fire dragon froze before it was shattered by Ice Divimon's fist. Ice Divimon flew down and crashed into Kyubimon by planting a foot in her face before punching the fox in her throat, stifling her scream. He then threw her upwards and flapped his broken-looking wings. Avalanche Claw. Icicle Spike flew from his wings and impacted with the fox Digimon and sent her to the ground. Kyubimon fell and struggled to get back up and failed. Henry got an idea and swiped a card. Digimodify, Expansion Activate. He yelled and Terrierman's body bloated up and cracks formed as pressure built up in the ice and Q-aced it to crack into small pieces. "Should we go attack?" Kakato asked. Henry shook his head and pointed to the standing Naruto and Dorumon. "This is their fight, Takato." Ice Divimon chuckled as he watched the 9-tailed Digimon. However, he was caught off guard by a cry of "Metal Shoot." Metal spheres impacted with Ice Divimon's body, sending the Digimon stumbling forwards. Katen, Katebakufu no Jutsu. A large explosion of fire struck Ice Divimon in his back. Then Dorumon ran forward with a burst of speed. Digimodify, Flamedramon Activate. Naruto swiped the card and Dorumon erupted into flames and then crashed down onto Ice Divimon. The Ice Champion Digimon turned and saw the duo still standing. Naruto then rushed forwards and ducked underneath a counter swipe from Ice Divimon's frozen claw before charging wind chakra into his fist, forming a miniature tornado around his fist and slammed it into Ice Divimon's stomach, causing the Digimon to be cut. Then Naruto grabbed Ice Divimon by his throat and brought the Digimon's face hard upon his knee before forming a cross-shaped hand sign. Kagebenshin no Jutsu. He yelled. Naruto and Dorumon then got a boost from the clones and went high up to the ceiling. Naruto the clone kicked Ice Divimon in the face with enough force to sending him upwards. Naruto then formed a rasengan and Dorumon flew back down headfirst using Hyper Dash Metal. Uzumaki Rasengan Renden. Naruto Uzumaki Spiraling Metal Barrage. The attack struck home and Ice Divimon was hit. However, as the Ice Digimon hit the floor, a large purple light enveloped Ice Divimon. Naruto and Dorumon landed on the ground and saw the Ice Devil obtain the violet digital hazard sign in the middle of his chest over the bat sign. Naruto then spied Gilman and looked at the digital hazard symbol. They're the same, but Gilman is good, I can tell. The digital hazard. What other Digimon possess the digital hazard sign? Find that and I find the master, Naruto thought. Ice Divimon suddenly rose back up and his eyes became a darker shade of magenta mixed with purple. The master will destroy you, your power is growing too great, and if the master breaks free you will manage to stop him. Naruto, Uzumaki Namikaze and Dorumon prepare to be eradicated. Ice Divimon roared and then his eyes glowed blue and purple. Black ice, he yelled. A dark blue beam, so dark that it appeared an ebony color, flew from Ice Divimon's eyes, and although Naruto was able to dodge it, Dorumon was too tired to do the same and he was suddenly encased in opaque black ice. Naruto's eyes, along with everyone else's, looked in shock as their most powerful rookie Digimon became encased in black ice. Hehe, the Dorumon is defeated now for you, Uzumaki. Ice Divimon growled. Gatomon suddenly appeared in front of Naruto and Dorumon. I won't let you hurt them, the feline hissed. Ice Divimon growled and Gatomon rushed forward with her paws glowing white. Lightning Paw, Frozen Claw and Lightning Paw engaged in a duel to become the victor, each blow matching the other as they clashed against one another, causing small booms to be heard from their impact. However, Gatomon got tired from the 20 minutes of constant punching and was left wide open before Ice Divimon SWNG, and his claws tore at her, sending Gatomon flying and slamming against the black ice. Gatomon slid down the ice and Dorumon's frozen form. Although they couldn't see it, his form shook slightly. "Stupid feline," he growled and flexed his claws. Ice Divimon walked towards the downed kitten. "No, I will not let you hurt her," Naruto growled, his eyes flashing red. The blonde stood up and got into a fighting stance. "You've taken Dorumon from me, but I will not let you hurt the one Digimon friend he actually sees as a true friend, and I will not let you damage Dorumon Enemori. Dorumoon," Naruto roared. The black ice prison rocked back and forth before cracks formed from white light formed and light from Naruto's D-Arc formed too. Gatomon and everyone else looked in surprise at the light's intensity. Dorumon stood there, free from the ice prison and surrounded by an aura of shining light. "Naruto arigato," Dorumon said. "We're partners?" "No." Naruto paused. "We're brothers and we stick out for each other," Naruto said as he withdrew a card from his card pack in his card case. Dorumon nodded. "Then let's show this ice freak what us brothers can do." Naruto and Dorumon yelled simultaneously. Naruto's card, the Digivolution card, glowed before he slashed it through the D-Arc. Digimodify, Digivolution activate. Digivolution. Dorumon's old interface symbol glowed red before he was surrounded by swirls of reddish-violet data that then formed a swirling egg of reddish-violet data. Dorumon Digivolve 2. Dorumon's skin and fur peeled away to reveal a much large form, bound together by reddish-violet squares of data. The skin then reattached itself along with fur. The reddish-violet egg of data exploded to reveal Dorumon's champion form. A large dragon, only a little bit shorter than Growlman, emerged. Black fur with purple zigzag patterns coated the Digimon. 2 large wings on the back were black with purple zigzag patterns, but on the underside they were pure white, just like the snout area. Hands, feet, wrists, and ankles along with the tip of the new Digimon's tail. A collar of white fur formed at the base of the dragon's neck, and the ears were more pointed than before. Sharp teeth lined its jaws, and 3 crimson claws on each of the dragon's forelimbs and back limbs seemed to shine. Orange eyes seemed to glow in their sockets. Finally, the red triangle, outlined in gray, the old interface, lay in the center of its forehead. Dorugumon. Everyone stared in awe at the large dragon Digimon. Dorugumon. Naruto smiled. "Finally Digivolution has been achieved." Dorugumon growled at the Ice Divimon. Ice Divimon growled back. "You think Digivolution can help you? Well, think again, Black Ice." The black ice encased Dorugumon, but a deafening bestial roar sounded from the black ice prison before it cracked and Dorugumon freed himself. "Your attack have no effect on me again," Team Dorugumon said, and his tail swished through the air. Dorugumon then floated above the floor as he flapped his massive wings and then took off and slammed into Ice Divimon. Ice Divimon was sent into a wall before Dorugumon grabbed the Ice Digimon and slammed him into the ground. Dorugumon roared and bit down on the smaller champion's wings. Dorugumon's pupils turned slitted. "This is for hurting my students and friends." He removed one wing with a bit of pulling using his strong neck and jaw muscles. "This is for hurting my brother." Dorugumon then removed the other broken-like wing, and it shattered like ice as he crushed it and ate the data that made the wing. "And this is for hurting Gatomon." He then grabbed Ice Divimon and threw him through the wall where Rika was. Rika ducked and watched as Ice Divimon slammed into the wall and made an Ice Divimon imprint. Dorugumon then opened his jaws and a large ball of steel and energy formed. The steel sphere crackled with red, blue, and violet energy bolts before he fired it. Power metal. The metallic projectile struck Ice Divimon and caused a large explosion as Ice Divimon was deleted for good. But the explosion resulted in a large hole forming in the wall, and since Rika was near, and the wind blowing so fiercely, she fell. Naruto and Dorugumon's eyes widened. Naruto quickly pumped chakra into his feet and ran to the edge and jumped towards Rika's falling form. Naruto quickly formed a cross-shaped hand sign. "Kagebenshin no Jutsu," he yelled, and then a perfect copy of himself formed in a puff of smoke. People from below, who had chosen to look up, saw Rika falling and a blonde boy falling after her. Naruto had the clone throw him and he built up velocity and shot forth like a pinball. After being launched, he then grabbed Rika, who was still full of fear. "Naruto, are you insane?" she cried. "Hey, remember what I told you. I'll always be there to protect you, Rika-chan," Naruto said with a foxy grin. Rika blushed at that, but then she noticed Naruto's eyes go from kind and sincere to serious as he righted himself as he held her bridal style as they were falling. "Dorugumon," he called out, and then the ebony dragon flew underneath them and they landed safely on his back, and the people below couldn't believe their eyes, and knowing they could not tell anyone about what they just saw because everyone would think they were crazy. "I really need to stop taking Vicodin," an old man said as he walked away with his cane by his side. Dorumon flew back up to the roof and saw Takato, Henry, Terrierman, Gilman, who was holding an unconscious Gatomon, meaning she didn't hear what Dorumon had said when he dealt the final blow to Ice Divimon. Kyubimon was waiting there as well, but far off from the other. Rika looked at what just occurred. Her Digimon nearly died at the hands of another in Naruto, and Dorumon would have also died by the hands of that frozen bastard. She suddenly felt a bubbling rage. The rage soon exploded and it became a hate towards not only Ice Divimon, but I hate them, she whispered. Well, don't worry, Rika, he's gone now, Takato said. I hate Digimon. I hate them all, Rika yelled. Kyubimon stared at Rika and Rika stared back at Kyubimon. Dorumon had been holding Gatomon before he nearly dropped the feline. Hearing Rika's statement, "Oh come guys, don't be like that," Takato said, trying to calm the situation. But the two females turned away from each other. Kyubimon took to the roofs while Rika walked downstairs and headed home. The males all looked at each other and said one thing: "I will never understand women." The guys then nodded goodbye to each other. Terrierman and Henry, along with Takato and Gilman, took the stairs down to go home. Naruto climbed on Dorumon's back, holding Gatomon in his arms as Dorumon flapped his wings and took off. As Dorumon flew through the air with Naruto and Gatomon, he let out one loud monstrous roar of triumph to signify his victory over Ice Divimon. Rika was walking through town with her hands in her pockets as she thought about some things. What the hell is up with digivolving? It's like anybody could do it these days, she thought. Flashback. Digivolution. Terrierman digivolved too. Terrierman's skin peeled away to reveal a large green rabbit covered in wireframe pattern, or blue squares for a simpler term. The skin then reattached itself as Terrierman's body grew into that of a larger rabbit. His face and ears were entirely green. The edge of the ears, the body and muzzle of Gargomon being a tan color. A red diamond lay in the center of the champion level's forehead. Two red slash-like markings were on Gargomon's cheeks. His hands were replaced with Gatling guns. A string of ammunition was strapped across the trigger Happy Bunny's chest, and he wore a pair of navy blue jeans. Gargomon, then Gogglehead, was able to digivolve that little dinosaur of his. Flashback. Gilman digivolved to Growlman. Growlman roared as he snorted flames through his nostrils. Growlman was a large version of Gilman, except the ears were now like spikes and two blade-like protrusion came from his elbows, and Gilman seemed to look a lot more reptilian looking with a mane of silver-white hair growing from the back of his head. Black band-like patterns with digicode on them were shown on his legs, forearms, and around the thick part of his tail. The 0 unit was emblazoned on his feet and hands, while the digital H-Hazard symbol was located on his left shoulder. In flashback, Renamon was able to do it also. Flashback. Digivolution. Renamon digivolved to Cubimon. Renamon's form changed to resemble a large golden and white-furred kitsune with the edges of the white fur that glowed with mystical blue flames on the paws. Instead of one tail, 8 more had sprouted out, now 9 blonde-colored tails, each tipped with white fur that seemed to also glow with mystical blue flames just like her paw fur. The bottom of Kyubimon's mouth was white and 2 purple slash marks were shown underneath her still glacial blue eyes, and a large white mane extended along the entire length of her neck. The yin-yang symbol was shown above each of her 4 legs, and one lay on the center of her forehead. A white and red rope tied in a bow with 2 golden bells attached to it was wrapped around her neck. End flashback. And finally Whiskers ... but he was able to use his Digivolution card was her final thought on the matter. Flashback. Digivolution. Dorumon's old interface symbol glowed red before he was surrounded by swirls of reddish-violet data that then formed a swirling egg of reddish-violet data. Dorumon digivolved too. Dorumon's skin and fur peeled away to reveal a much large form, bound together by reddish-violet squares of data. The skin then reattached itself along with fur. The reddish-violet egg of data exploded to reveal Dorumon's champion form. A large dragon, only a little bit shorter than Growlman, emerged. Black fur with purple zigzag patterns coated the Digimon. 2 large wings on the back were black with purple zigzag patterns, but on the underside they were pure white, just like the snout area. Hands, feet, wrists, and ankles along with the tip of the new Digimon's tail. A collar of white fur formed at the base of the dragon's neck, and the ears were more pointed than before. Sharp teeth lined its jaws, and 3 crimson claws on each of the dragon's forelimbs and back limbs seemed to shine. Orange eyes seemed to glow in their sockets. Finally, the red triangle, outlined in gray, the old interface, lay in the center of its forehead. Dorumon. End flashback. Rika continued to walk before snorting in annoyance. Who cares? Digimon are nothing but data. I don't need Renamon to protect me. The red-haired preteen continued to walk along the road until she nearly tripped over something. She looked down and saw a white little rabbit-looking creature with large ears that were trimmed in purple and looked up at her with its big green eyes. Kalumon. Rika raised her eyebrow in confusion. The little cream puff Digimon smiled, hiya, and then latched onto Rika's face, which she thoroughly yanked him off of. The two stared at each other for a while. That is until Rika and Calumen heard a small commotion going on in front of them. There were a few people who were standing in front of a building and mumbling quite loudly to themselves as they looked at a young brown-haired woman. It was Rika's mother, Makino Nonaka. The older woman spied her daughter and smiled before walking over to her. "Rika," Makino yelled out as she stopped in front of her. "Aka-chan, why are you here?" Rika asked. "I thought you had a photo shoot in Milan." Makino smiled. "No, I finished that earlier today, so I came back home to visit you and Aka-chan," Makino said. "Oh, by the way, how is that blonde you've been seeing?" "Naruto, I think his name was." Rika scowled. "And not together with him," Rika growled, unknown to the fact that people were looking back and forth between her mother and the large posters of the woman on the side of the building they were in front of. "And besides, I could care less about how he is." Makino frowned. "That's not very nice, Rika. Anyways, I have some new clothes for you. They are just the cutest. Do you want to see them?" she asked with hopeful eyes. Rika held Calumen and looked at her mother's eyes that held that pleading look they always did when she wanted her to wear those goofy clothes. "No," she said flatly and then turned away. Makino frowned. "Mateo, Rika." Rika paused and turned around. "I like your stuffed toy. It looks very cute," Makino said. Rika sighed and turned away before walking. She raised Calumen up to eye level and stared into his overly large green eyes. "You just had to be cute, didn't you?" she asked. "It's all part of the job," Rika Calumen said with a giggle. Rika held back a growl before heading for home. "With Naruto and Dorumon." "Come on guys, my Oba-chan was able to run faster than you," the blonde Jinchuriki called out as he watched Takato and Henry run around the park as their end of training exercise. After doing 100 push-ups, sit-ups and jumping jacks followed by 3 hours of sparring. "Gilman, Terrierman, you're lagging behind. Come on, you're not going to lose in running to some humans, are you?" Dorumon yelled, giving his torture victims, I mean friends, some pep talk. The Digimon nodded and began to put on a burst of speed, leaving behind a trail of dust as they passed their tamers. Naruto and Dorumon were running alongside Takato and Henry, who were beginning to tire out. "Alright, we'll call it a day guys," Naruto sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. The two tamers stopped along with their Digimon before they went over to a nice shady tree to rest. Naruto and Dorumon sat down on the grassy area that was shaded by the tree's foliage. "So Naruto?" Takato asked after taking a gulp of the water he had brought. Naruto looked at the goggle-wearing tamer in response. "Yeah, where is that other Digimon that was with you?" Takato asked. "Yeah, come to think of it, I saw another Digimon with you too. It looked like a cat," Henry added. Terrierman and Gilman were also wondering about the mystery Digimon. Dorumon and Naruto looked at each other. Phew, so they thought. What other Digimon? Maybe it was one of those Digimon imprisoned in ice by Ice Divimon that you saw," Naruto said, coming up with the excuse. Takato and Henry looked at each other. "No, this one was not in ice, and I remember you had it in your arms when you were leaving." "It was late, you're probably seeing things," Dorumon piped in. Henry scowled. "Are you guys hiding something from us, because you sound like you are?" Henry said. "Yeah, Narutoman, Dorumon. I wanna know," Gilman whined. "Maybe it's a Digimon that Naruto was going to use to replace Dorumon," Terrierman said. "Terrierman!" Henry exclaimed. Everyone's eyes widened as a pulse of killing intent filled their little area. The blue-eyed tamer stood to his full height of 5 feet, 5 inches, which towered over the little 2-foot-tall Terrierman, who was shaking in fear as Naruto's eyes flashed red. Momentai Terrierman managed to gasp out, but the killing intent seemed to intensify. "Never joke about that," the blonde growled. "Dorumon is my partner and a brother to me, and I wouldn't give him up for any other Digimon in the digital world." "Make that joke again and I'll make sure Dorumon increases your training to near unfathomable." Terrierman gulped and nodded before the killing intent left. "So as I was about to say, you guys are probably seeing things. It was late and you had just come out of a fight. There was no other Digimon there," Naruto said. Dorumon stood up and the duo left. Takato and Henry looked at their Digimon and then got up to leave. "I know I saw something. There was another Digimon there," Henry thought as he went back to his apartment. Why is Naruto being so nervous around the topic about this other Digimon? Maybe we shouldn't press on about it, Takato thought. But the two young tamers thought the same thing, although they were apart. "I will find out what's going on with Naruto." Naruto and Dorumon were walking through the streets of Shinjuku. Naruto had his hands shoved in his pockets, his sapphire orbs glazing over as he was in deep thought. The dragon Digimon looked concerned for his tamer and poked Naruto with a claw. "A penny for your thoughts?" Dorumon asked. Naruto sighed as he shifted his gaze skyward and looked at the white clouds that floated aimlessly in the endless blue void. "Just thinking about some things," Naruto said. Is it about Gatam? Doruman asked. Naruto shook his head and that left Doruman with only one option left. Rika, so what is it about Ms. Nanaka that's troubling you? Doruman asked. Naruto smirked before frowning. It's what she said last night after our fight with Ice Digimon. She said she hates all Digimon, the teenage tamer said. I see, and you want to find out how to get her and Renamen back together. The purple-furred lizard added. Naruto looked down at his brother. It's like you read my mind, the blonde said. Doruman shrugged. Hey, I'm your partner, I'm supposed to, he said. Well, I'm going to pay her a visit. Go and see if you can find Renamen, and if you can't, go back to the apartment and watch over Gatam, Naruto instructed. Doruman nodded and the two went their separate ways. Rika's house. Rika was sitting on her floor staring at the blue D-Arc in her hand along with the deck of Digimon cards. Digimon PFFT, such a waste of my time, Rika thought, and then she walked over to the trash bin in her room and dumped the D-Arc in it before going outside. She walked along the walkway around her house. Seiko watched her granddaughter. Rika was beginning to open up before, but now she was going back to becoming as distant as she was before. Rika-chan, Seiko asked. The fiery-haired girl looked up from the ground and looked at her grandmother. Hi, Oba-chan. Are you okay? You've been awfully quiet and I was wondering if there was anything wrong. The elderly woman asked. Rika shook her head. No, it's nothing. Are you sure? Something at school maybe? Or maybe it's that Digimon thing you've been doing all the time? Seiko asked. Rika's eyes widened minutely, but she made sure it wasn't noticeable to her grandmother's ever-watchful eyes. The violet-eyed tamer shook her head. I said I'm fine, Oba-chan. Rika sighed. I just need some space, okay? Rika then took off and went to the little pond in the yard. She stood on the bridge and watched as the koi fish swam in an everlasting dance. The two koi swirling in a circle in the mildly deep waters. Rika's eyes then perceived the image to be similar to that of the markings on Renamen's legs. The two violet tomo, but Rika shook her head and rubbed her eyes as she glanced back at the koi fish. The image was gone. Now we both know that's a lie, Rika-chan, a voice said. Rika turned in surprise and saw the blonde tamer leaning up against a tree. What are you doing here, Whiskers? She asked, rolling her eyes. Naruto reached into his weapons pouch and pulled out the kunai he had given her. You left in such a hurry that you forgot this, he said, handing her the weapon. Rika looked at the kunai knife and shoved Naruto's hand aside. I don't need that useless weapon. I don't need protection, Rika growled. Naruto glared in Rika's own violet eyes. He had much more experience in the art that was glaring and stared her down until she folded. The red-haired tamer sat down on the small bridge that was above the large koi pond. Unconfused, she stated. Naruto sighed and sat down next to her. Aren't we all? I don't know what to do anymore. I've always had Renamen with me to help me with tough decision. But now, she's gone and I can't bring her back. SHR turned to the older boy sitting next to her. What should I do? Naruto looked up at the sky and shrugged. Rika-chan, there are times when people will not always be there to help you make tough decisions. Rika looked confused at his reply, but didn't say anything as he continued. Take me for instance. I've been alone my entire life. I am used to having to make these decisions. But you Rika-chan, have been around people who help you with these decisions. Naruto took out the kunai and took her hand. Rika blushed slightly at the contact, but it faded as he placed the ebony weapon as her grasp. Now is the time when you must make your own decisions, Rika-chan. You're a strong, smart, and quick-thinking girl. One of the people that I've come to trust in this world. Naruto paused before standing to his feet and stepped off the bridge, amazing Rika as he stood there on the water's surface. Weapons like that kunai can be used to protect or destroy, Rika-chan. Rika-chan, you will make a decision, protect or destroy, and when the time comes. Naruto smirked and then he heard footsteps approaching and made the hand sign for Ram. The wind began to swirl around him and leaves appeared out of nowhere in the miniature gust of air. What do I have to do when the time comes, Whiskers? She asked. Naruto showed his famous foxy grin to the red-haired tamer. When the time comes, you'll know what to do, and then with a wink he left in a swirl of wind and leaves. It was then that Makino stepped through the door and looked to see her daughter standing near the pond staring at the koi fish, not aware that the blonde shinobi was present just a few seconds ago. The brown-haired woman sighed and shook her head. I am never going to understand my daughter, and then she turned back to go inside. Rika looked at the kunai knife in her hand, as if examining it with great detail. What do I do? With Doruman. Doruman was running around looking for the blonde fox. He had caught on to the Digimon's scent. Dear sovereigns, why does she have to be so far away? He glanced at the sky and saw the blue shade disappearing as shades of red, yellow, and pink bled into a mixture of color in the sky. And it's already sunset. Doruman sighed in relief as he saw the fox Digimon standing atop the banister of a nearby billboard. But it was what was a few feet in front of Renamen that intrigued him. Oh, for the love of all that is mischievous and handsome as me, quit following me, fox face, the ever-annoying voice of Impmon proclaimed. Renamin stopped walking along the banister as she followed the little Digimon. I've noticed that you always seem to be alone and you never have a tamer ... yet you've survived for this long, Renamin inquired. Impmon growled. Hey, I got through my life here in this pathetic world by my smarts. Dorumon snickered from below. And the strength that I have. Well, I have a question for you, the fox Digimon said. Impmon's non-existent eyebrow rose in confusion. You freaking followed me around for a few hours just to ask me a question. Renamin nodded in confirmation. Hi, and being without a tamer I have come to you for advice. So, I see you finally got that mumbo-jumbo about tamers and partners all out of your little noggin, toots. So what is this question that you've been wanting to ask me? The scarf-wearing Digimon said. How do I become stronger without a tamer? I've always had Rika by my side throughout my entire life here and now I don't know what to do, Renamin said. Impmon shrugged. Well, what the hell do I care? But if it means that much to you, all I can say is that you don't need that snot-nosed gaki of a tamer. She's been the one dragging you down all this time. She has never fought in her entire life, always thinking you'll be there to take the fall whenever she's in trouble. Now that blonde tamer, fox boy, now that's a tamer. He fights alongside his Digimon. Not that I have a particular liking to the gaki, but at least he can fight, Impmon said. Dorumon and Renamin seemed to be surprised by the sudden inclusion of Naruto in the conversation. I see Naruto has developed a follower, the dragon Digimon thought with a smirk. So you're telling me that Rika ... is a hindrance to me? The blonde fox asked. Impmon nodded. Hi, but I need her in order to digivolve. How do I get the power to that without Rika? I don't give a ratman's ass, Impmon said and then turned to leave. Mateo, Impmon, answer me. Renamin pleaded. Impmon growled in frustration. I don't know, Foxface. Maybe you've had the power inside all along and you just need to draw on it somehow. I don't give fuck now, leave me alone. The imp Digimon leaped away, leaving the fox Digimon alone ... or so she thought. So, going to the little puppy kicker for advice. Renamin turned in surprise as she saw Dorumon standing behind her. I didn't even sense his presence, she thought as her glacial blue eyes stared at the old interface Digimon. If you're wondering how you weren't able to sense me, it's because of the stealth training I've been given from Naruto, the orange-eyed Digimon stated. And no, I cannot read your mind. Your facial expression gives away what you are thinking. Renamin nodded, but she couldn't help but doubt the shorter Digimon's words of not being able to read minds. Yes, Impmon has been without a tamer from what I've seen. He was the only one I can think of, for a lack of a worse term. Guidance, Renamin said with a sigh. Dorumon nodded. I see. Well, are you going to leave Rika for good? Renamin shrugged as her digital brain was blank, an answer not arising from the depths of her digital cerebrum. I believe I should, but I have this feeling of doubt within me, Renamin said. The orange-eyed dragon observed his fellow digital monster's expressions. Well, there are times when one must make difficult decisions in their lives, as Naruto once told me ... and no one can really help you in making such decisions as only you yourself can answer them. I won't tell you what to do, but considering your current predicament, I say you should return to Rika. However, whether you choose to or not is your decision, Renamin, Dorumon said in a sage-like tone. I never thought you could be so insightful. It's something I picked up from Naruto. For a dunce, he can be a genius when it comes to one's personal matters. Well, I gotta go or Gatam will be worried. Dorumon rushed past the blonde fox in a burst of speed before leaping along the rooftops. The blue-eyed fox swished her tail as she watched the second purple Digimon leave her presence. However, whether you choose to or not ... is your decision, Renamin. These words forever haunted the Kitsune Digimon's mind before she faded away from her location. Later that night, Naruto's apartment. Naruto and Dorumon were sitting on the couch as Gatam stood atop the small coffee table in the middle of the joint living room. Kitchen. I can't believe you guys left me alone here without any consideration to tell me where you went. And another thing. Dorumon, why were you with Renamin? The two males rolled their eyes as the blue-eyed feline continued her rant of doom. Is she ever going to stop? The tamer and Digimon thought in their minds. Thankfully, their prayers were answered as someone began knocking on the door of Naruto's apartment. Naruto glanced at Dorumon and Gatam. Okay guys, you know the drill, the blonde announced. The two Digimon nodded. Gatam and Dorumon quickly took on an immovable phase as they appeared to look like stuffed animals. Naruto quickly channeled his chakra. Henge no jutsu, he mumbled, and with a puff of smoke Naruto had changed into the likeliness of his father, Minato Namikaze, wearing a larger version of the outfit he was currently wearing and sporting the whisker-like marks on his cheeks. Naruto, disguised by his henge, walked over to the door and peeked through the peephole in the door and saw a delivery man. Opening the door, Naruto looked at the man. You knocked, Naruto said. The delivery man had a large box next to him with a smaller box atop it. "Oh, hi. Are you a mister?" The man glanced down at the clipboard in his hand. "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze." Naruto nodded. "Yes. Yes, I am." The delivery man nodded and then picked up the boxes, but Naruto noticed he was straining in carrying them, probably from carrying them up 3 flights of stairs while trying to balance the larger box in his hands. "Don't worry, I got it," Naruto said and took the boxes from the delivery man and rested it in the apartment room. "Okay, well then, Mr. Namikaze, you ordered one HP LCD desktop computer with a ready installed copy of Windows 7 software, a 20GB external memory card and wireless keyboard and mouse, as well as one Motorola cell phone with 4G software as well Android software installed into said phone?" the delivery man asked. Naruto nodded. He had done some flipping through catalogs as well as going to a library and looking at the computers for dummies, cell phones for dummies, and the many other electronic appliances for one who is new to technology for dummies books, and was now able to operate practically any piece of technology due to his use of Kagebenshin to memorize the information from the books. Naruto was now a tech nerd. "Hi, arigato." Naruto thanked the man and signed the clipboard to certify his payment of the electronic devices, and the delivery man left with a tip of his hat. Naruto closed the door and released his henge, reverting back to his original form of a 13-year-old boy. Doruman and Gatam immediately got up as soon as Naruto released his henge and turned to the boxes with a smile. "Oh boy, my order from the Amazon catalog reached." Naruto tore into the poor defenseless cubes of cardboard, first taking out his newly bought cell phone, and observed it. He found the power switch to be placed on top the outlining of the phone and was greeted with a "Hello Moto." Sugoi, the 3 occupants of the apartment, said. "What are these things?" Gatoman asked. Naruto opened out the box for the computer next. "These, Gatoman, are what are known as computers and cell phones. A cell phone, which is the small device in my hand, is used for telecommunication, in which radio waves are transferred wireless live from a phone to another cell phone. For example, say I wanted to talk to Rika-chan. I could use it, and if she answers her cell phone, I could communicate with her. Sound is heard from the small speaker on the top of the phone here, while you speak into the other speaker down on the bottom of the phone," Naruto explained. Gatoman and Doruman tilted their heads in confusion. "Huh?" they stated intelligently. "So it's like a communicator?" Gatoman asked. Naruto's eyes brightened. "Yes, you get it," he exclaimed. Doruman still looked confused as ever. Naruto then proceeded to set up the computer. "So what's this now?" Doruman asked. "This is a computer. It is used for a multitude of uses. It can be used for communication through a software known as email. You can find information on almost anything using this incredible search engine called the internet. Also, it is what makes the digital world. The digital world, I've realized, is made up from the joining up of all the servers and computer softwares all over the world. Hence why there is a real world floating in the sky of the digital world. Also, since it appears that both worlds are parallel to each other and are sort of one and the same, whatever happens here happens in the digital world. But I'm getting off topic." Naruto paused. "Anyway, the computer is what I wanted to have in order to help with my research on Digimon. Apparently, since Digimon are man-made, the data constructs that make up the information on the Digimon produce a real-life, physical representation of the Digimon." Naruto looked back at his coveted brown box that held his computer. "So why do you need a computer to learn about Digimon? I mean, you have us," Doruman said. Gatoman nodded. "I agree with Doruman. Why do you need a piece of machinery when you have living, breathing Digimon right in front of you?" the feline Digimon added. "Because not even you two have information on every single Digimon in the digital world," Naruto replied. As he took out the box filled with computer equipment, his eyes widened and his sweat dropped as he gazed at the large amount of wires he saw wrapped up into 3 individual coils. Then he took out the hard drive, the computer, the desktop monitor, and other computer gadgets before he took out the instruction manual. Naruto struggled to hold up the large book before dropping it on the floor, and the 2 Digimon and 1 human stared down at the large yellow book that read manual as it made a noticeable indentation in the carpet-covered floor. "This might take a while longer than I thought," Naruto mused. Doruman and Gatoman's sweat dropped at the Tamers' statement. "You think?" 5 hours later. "Finally, I'm done." Naruto stared proudly at his newly constructed computer. "That's great. Now where are you gonna put it?" the 2 Digimon asked. "On the desk table by the window that I had ordered last week." "I wondered why you bought that hunk of wood," Doruman mused. Naruto moved his computer to the desk and stood back to admire it proudly before fishing out the wireless mouse and keyboard along with the wireless LAN in order for him to connect to the internet. After synchronizing the devices, Naruto was ready for his journey into the unknown world of cyberspace. He pushed the power button and the three could have sworn they heard a chorus of angels as the white light of the now active monitor glowed. Naruto seemed to tear up as he was brought to the home screen and saw the Google Chrome icon. He clicked it and nearly teared up at the sight of the search bar. It's beautiful, he whispered. It looks like a piece of shit. This is what we were wasting 5 hours of our lives to do, Dorumon said. Naruto's happy expression immediately faded from his face and he turned to glare at the dragon as he sat on the swiveling leather chair he bought with the wooden computer desk. Do you always have to ruin the moment? The blonde asked. Dorumon smirked. Now what kind of question is that? You already know the answer. In response, both he and Gatomon bopped him on the head, earning a grunt of pain. Front the dragon Digimon. Itachi. The next day, Naruto had finally built up enough trust in Gatomon to finally let her out during the day. And damn, she was shocked when she saw the large amounts of humans, vehicles, and towering buildings that seemed to reach the heavens. The golden glow of the sun as it began to set seemed to enhance the appearance of the towering infrastructure. This is nothing like it is during the night, she murmured as she sat atop Naruto's blonde head. School had finished quite a while ago, so the trio were just enjoying the scenery. Then their minds were taken to the loud beeping sound from Naruto's pocket. We got a Digimon that's bio-emerging, Naruto stated. The two Digimon nodded and Naruto knelt down so Dorumon could climb on his back. You two ready? He asked. The dragon and cat Digimon nodded atop his head and back respectively. Naruto then took off, leaving behind a trail of dust at the speed he was moving. Many people gasped as they saw a black, purple, white and yellow blur race past them. Thus they didn't get a good look at the trio. Naruto fished out his D-arc and the hologram of the compass appeared. The red arrow pointed in a northeast direction, which Naruto followed. This thing is so far away, Naruto sighed. He had been running for a while, and it was slightly dark, a shade of navy blue bleeding into the fire-colored sky. Naruto then skidded to a halt as the D-arc found the destination. The Digimon ... is in a parking lot. The blonde questioned, more to himself than others. Apparently so, Gatomon inquired. Naruto then looked around and saw no one around, so after that he quickly channeled chakra into his feet and ran up the concrete walls of the parking lot until he reached the 4th level of the lot, which was where the Digimon was situated. Gatomon and Dorumon hopped off of Naruto's person. The enhanced sense of smell came to life as Naruto took a deep breath through his nose. His eyes seemingly flashed red before he spotted a shadow moving in the back area of the parking lot. Found you. With a smirk, the blonde and the two Digimon stared into the shadowy background of the parking lot. Then a large black lizard jumped out. The digital monster's body seemed to be completely made of dark violet and black flames. A burnt orange made the color of its irises, and upon its head was a steel helmet. 3 sharp claws on each hand of the Dramon Digimon glinted in the light of the street lamps across the street. Naruto drew his D-arc and scanned the Digimon as a holographic image of the Digimon in front of him was shown. Dark Lizardman, a champion-level Digimon who is made from a Flaresman that is infected with a virus. Its attacks are Dark Flare, Snipe Fang and Darkness Wave. Naruto read. So Gatomon, how about I let you take this one? You haven't fought anyone except Dorumon since you've come here, the blonde tamer suggested. Gatomon smiled like ... well, like a cat, and showed her sharp fangs. Perfect idea. Naruto, the feline Digimon, purred, her tail flicking back and forth in the air. Bring it on, kitty cat, the Digimon said with a feminine tone, indicating that Dark Lizardman was female. The feline raced towards the Dramon Digimon as Naruto and Dorumon sat atop a car and ate some popcorn that Naruto had stored in his ceiling scroll that he always kept with him. Gatomon quickly jumped into the air and aimed a slash at the fire dragon, but the lizard dodged the strike before aiming to use her own flaming slash on the Nico Digimon. However, Gatomon avoided the attack, but Dark Lizardman followed up with more slashes. Gatomon smirked as she used her superior speed and reflexes to avoid the attacks. The adrenaline coursing through her, Gatomon jumped and flipped over Dark Lizardman's head before her claws glowed with a holy ivory color. Lightning Paw. The glowing paws slammed into the flaming lizard's back, sending her flying. Gatomon followed after and then channeled the energy from her Nico kick and increased her speed to appear in front of Dark Lizardman before slamming another lightning paw into the enemy Digimon's face. Then she fired more claw attacks to the chest that knocked the wind out of Dark Lizardman before Gatomon performed a powerful uppercut with enough force to knock out teeth. If the lizard had teeth, that is, before following up with a glowing foot to the chin. Nico kick. The foot crashed into the fiery lower jaw of the masked dragon, sending her skyward. Gatomon jumped after her and then performed an axe kick to send her back to Earth. But Dark Lizardman's eyes seemed to glow their burnt orange color before blocking the kick by crossing her forearms before grabbing the feline Digimon's ankle and making her meet the earth and forming an indentation in the concrete. Dark Lizardman then dropped down next to the fallen Gatomon and opened her jaws. A swirl of dark shadows and purple flames formed before being launched at Gatomon. Darkness wave. She yelled and the attack raced towards the feline Digimon. However, Gatomon was able to climb to her feet, and with a rush of adrenaline cartwheeled out of the way before speeding towards her opponent. Claws alight with white energy. Dark Lizardman roared and her flaming claws seemed to grow in length and took on the shape of jaws. Lightning Paw. Snipe Fang. The two attacks clashed in a flurry of blows, sending shockwaves of light and dark after each impact. Then Gatomon and Dark Lizardman interlocked their attacks, energy flaring out from their contact before Gatomon used the interlocking to keep her forepaws stationary and leaped up to perform a front flip. Both her feet glowed as she powered through with a Nico kick to the face with enough force to knock out teeth. Fortunately for the Dragon of Flame, she had no teeth as Dark Lizardman's interlocking grip loosed and was sent skidding backwards, kicking up a slight amount of dust. Dark Lizardman then ducked under a lightning paw before crashing her claws into Gatomon's face, and then spinning in her long flaming whip, which could only be identified as her tail, slammed into the cat Digimon. Gatomon let out a cry of pain before she crashed into a support column. The white-furred cat glared at the fiery lizard, and her feet glowed from charging up a Nico kick and used the energy to increase her feet's movement and blurred out of Dark Lizardman's field of vision. The dragon Digimon looked around, her head whipping in every available direction in a 360-degree angle. She seems to be quite adept at fighting, Naruto said as he ate his popcorn. Dorumon reached over and took some for himself. Yeah, and I have personal experience to back it up, the dragon Digimon added before swallowing. But she still has a long way to go before she can beat others above champion level. If she had a tamer, Gatomon might be able to handle herself better and be able to beat even ultimate level Digimon, Dorumon said. Naruto nodded in agreement, but even what Dorumon said was right. Both Tamer and Digimon could only frown at the thought of Gatomon leaving the apartment to live with another person. Maybe was all he uttered. Dark Lizardman roared in pain as Gatomon dropped down from the ceiling, raking her claws down as they dug deeply into the fiery flesh that was Dark Lizardman. Gatomon then spun in a roundhouse kick to the back of the entity of Dark Flames. Dark Lizardman grunted in pain before smirking to herself as she caught a claw aimed for her face, and then grabbed the other one. Gatomon growled and her pupils became vertical slits as she attempted to free herself from the iron grip of Dark Lizardman. If it weren't for her forepaws being made of the data from the Mega Digimon, Saberliamon, the burning sensation in her arms would be much, much worse. Dark Lizardman chuckled before throwing Gatomon away and into a car, breaking the headlights and causing the alarm to go off loudly. However, the sound was soon replaced with a loud explosion as the darkness wave attack crashed into Gatomon and caused the car to blow up also from the extra power. Gatomon gritted her teeth as she leapt out from the burning wreckage of the vehicle. Her fur was slightly singed since she was able to escape quickly. Her eyes widened as she was face to face with a large tongue of violet-black flames that was just only a few seconds away from reaching her position. Dark Flare was the cry from the reptilian Digimon as the attack sped towards the chosen target. However, it was ended as the blast was diverted. Gatomon's eyes widened as she saw Naruto holding a kunai that was surrounded by wind chakra. Fire may be fueled by wind, but wind can divert the flames, Naruto stated. Are you alright, Gatomon? Dorumon asked as he knelt down to the downed champion Digimon. Gatomon nodded and then she stared up at the much taller blonde shinobi. And with that gaze in his eyes, the fierce sapphire orbs brimming with determination to protect those precious, she knew she could trust Naruto with her very life. The golden ring on Gatomon's tail began to glow a shining topaz color. Naruto looked back and his eyes widened as the light stretched from the tail ring and followed a path and snaked its way into his hand. The light took on the shape of a D-arc, similar to Dorumon's, except the ring around its screen was a bronze gold color, like Fanglongman's scales. Naruto smirked and then clutched the D-arc in his hand. Lucky me, 2 Digimon partners, the shinobi stated. Gatomon chuckled as she rose to her feet with Dorumon's assistance. I knew I could trust you. Naruto the feline gave off a smirk to her newly proclaimed tamer. Naruto smirked and then cracked his knuckles and neck. Then what do you say, partner? You up for a fight? Of course. Oi, don't leave me out, Dorumon exclaimed. Naruto smirked and formed a cross-shaped hand sign. Kagebenshin no Jutsu. And with a puff of smoke, a perfect copy of himself formed. He then handed Gatomon's D-arc to the clone while he held Dorumon's. Naruto then drew a card and handed it to the Kagebenshin, who smirked at seeing the card. Digimodify, Saber Lemon activate. The clone said. Gatomon smirked as her claw glowed a brilliant yellow. Howling Crusher. Gatomon yelled and brought down the 2 claws that made contact with Dark Lizardman. The reptile of flame was sent to the ground before a roar was heard. Digimodify, Talisman's Deep Forest. Dorumon raised his claws and brought them down, and a crack formed in the earth as it reached Dark Lizardman, and a large pillar of earth formed that sent Dark Lizardman upwards. Naruto and clone nodded to each other before running towards the Digimon and then wind chakra into their feet. Their speed increased as a miniature tornado swirled around both blondes. Naruto and the Cageman flashed through hand signs, and then wind chakra flowed from their feet to their hands and formed 2 large claws on each blonde. Dark Lizardmen then reached their level as they reached out and made contact with the Digimon with the claws of slashing wind. FUNN, Tatsumaki Aseki no Jutsu, Wind Style, Tornado Crusher Jutsu. Dark Lizardman let out a scream of pain and crashed into the back wall of the parking lot and sent her falling to the floor after. The clone dispelled itself after handing Naruto the D-Arc for Gatomon to the original, who pocketed it with Dorumon's. The trio then walked over to the downed Digimon, whose form was beginning to flicker. No, please don't make me go. I want to be stronger. Help me DIGIVOLVE. Dark Lizardman surprised everyone by standing to her feet and reached out towards Naruto, but paused as Naruto was a small object flying through the air and nailed the Digimon in the neck. Naruto watched as Dark Lizardman's eyes rolled into the back of her head before she fell to the ground unconscious, a tranquilizer dart stuck in her neck. Naruto, Dorumon and Gatomon then turned as they saw a white light and the sound of the rotating of the blades from a. Naruto tried to remember what machine made that sound. Then it hit him. A helicopter. He tilted his head to the side in confusion. Then he heard footsteps and saw a man with dirty blonde hair in a black business suit and wearing dark sunglasses to cover his eyes. A cigarette lighter was being fiddled with in the newcomer's hands. "We'll take it from here, little boy," the man said as many armed men came down from helicopter and took Dark Lizardman. "What are you going to do with her?" the younger blonde asked. Yamaki chuckled. "Well, we just came here to tell you, little boy, that this is not to be treated as a game." Naruto rolled his eyes. "Oh, yes, sure, let's play catch with the giant fireballs," Naruto said sarcastically. Yamaki glared from beneath his shades. "Listen here, boy, we know about you and your little monsters. These creatures are dangerous to be around, and I can tell you know this too," Yamaki said, gesturing to Dark Lizardman. Maybe I should take your own monsters too." Yamaki gestured to his soldiers to make a move, but they all froze as Naruto released killing intent. "Sir, I can't move," one soldier said. Naruto's eyes were a deep crimson as he stared at Yamaki. "You make one move towards these two and I'll make sure that you never see the light of day," the Jinchuriki growled. Yamaki gritted his teeth and Naruto ended his killing intent wave. "Well then, you seem interesting. More interesting than these monsters here," he smirked. "Take him down, boys." The soldiers raced, bent down on their knees and readied their tranquilizer guns. But when dealing with Naruto, who can move faster than the wind, was not a smart idea to use a gun which takes so long. Relatively speaking, of course, to use, since you have to get into a position to shoot with the most efficiency, and also the reloading of the darts. Naruto growled, and before the soldiers could even move, Naruto vanished from sight, and then Yamaki watched in shock as he saw Naruto reappear as if he never left the spot, and saw all his soldiers lying on the floor, their guns knocked away and crushed, therefore making both weapons and man unusable. "We'll meet again, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," Yamaki said. "How do you know my name?" the whiskered blonde asked with a glare. Yamaki pocketed his lighter and smirked. "We have been keeping an eye on you for quite a while, and with this little presentation you just showed me." Yamaki chuckled. "Your little secret might go public." Naruto's eyes widened and then watched as the soldiers who were groaning on the floor slowly get up and walk away with Yamaki back to the helicopter. Naruto, Dorumon and Gatomon stared in shock and watched the helicopter fly off. Naruto watched it and saw it go towards a pair of twin towers. "Tomorrow night, we go into those towers, and we destroy all evidence of me," Naruto said. He knew that they would probably take the rest of the night to only contain Dark Lizardman. The next day they would do their research and then update their files on Naruto's information. "We can't risk the world knowing about you," Dorumon said. "Why don't we go now?" the dragon asked. "Because we can't go with Gatomon exhausted," he said, gesturing to the panting cat Digimon. "No, I am okay. Really," she said between gasps before she fell unconscious. Dorumon quickly caught her before she hit the ground. Dorumon glared at the twin towers as he carried Gatomon. He and Naruto then walked back to the apartment and got Gatomon to sleep on the bed that Dorumon and Gatomon now shared. Apparently she was only having nightmares just like Naruto, except hers seemed to be much worse. One word came from the mouths of both dragon and human. They stared out the window in the direction of the Hypnos towers. Tomorrow, the next day, Naruto smirked as he looked at Gatomon. "It looks good on you," he said. He had attached a small cord of leather through the strap on Gatomon's D-arc and wrapped it around her neck to make a makeshift necklace. "Really?" she asked. "Of course, you look nice," Dorumon said with a toothy grin. A blush reached Gatomon's face at the compliment from Dorumon. Arigato. Then the D-arcs went off, a beeping sound coming from both of them. "Well, looks like we got a bio-emergence," Naruto said, and then nearly fell over as a sudden force reached his back and head. Dorumon climbed onto his tamer's back while Gatomon jumped onto her tamer's head. Naruto sighed. "Suddenly, I'm beginning to feel I'm being abused for my uses of high-speed movement." "Alwa, Gomen Nasai," Naruto Gatomon said. "It's okay, Gatomon. I'm happy to carry you too, and I'll do it when I can," he said with a foxy grin. "Now mush," Dorumon said and looked to see Naruto glaring back at him. "Don't push it," he said, and then formed hand signs and the trio vanished in a swirl of leaves and wind. Shinjuku Baseball Field. The wind picked up around an area of the grass in the baseball field. A miniature tornado formed and the leaves swirled around before the winds dispersed to reveal Naruto with Gatomon and Dorumon. The two Digimon dropped down and shook their heads. "How do you not get dizzy from moving like that?" the feline asked. Naruto shrugged. "I guess it's because I'm just that awesome," the blonde said with a smirk. "Oh, you are so vain, my blonde tamer," Dorumon sighed. Then the compass appeared on the D-arc around Gatomon's neck, showing that they were directly on top of the area where the Digimon were to appear. The hazy mist of a digital field then formed as a large fountain of data sprung forth from the earth. 5 Flybeamon and 7 Flymen appeared from the data portal. The swarm of insect Digimon buzzed as they spotted the trio. The holographic image of a Flyman, the likeliness of a mutate bumblebee, a pointy black beak and the likeliness of pincers made its jaws, large wings made of a pink membrane and inscribed with an odd yellow symbol. The large black claw tipped each of its 6 legs and a large pointed black stinger completed the image. Flyman Naruto read, a champion-level Digimon whose hide is quite thick and contains a very potent poison in its body. Guess we will have to watch out for its brown stinger and poison power attacks. The trio then faced the swarm and charged. The swarm also split up, the Flybeamon taking Naruto, and the Flyman heading for the two Digimon partners. Naruto leaped into the air, charged chakra into his clenched fist before crashing it into the head of a Flybeamon, sending both he and it to the ground. "Lightning Stinger," one of the armored Digimon yelled. Naruto rolled out of the way as a red lightning bolt struck the downed insect Digimon and caused it to disappear into red flakes of data. Naruto then smirked as he saw 2 of them descend to attack him. He quickly spun on his heel and performed a spin kick that directed at the one of the 2 Digimon's sides. He then grabbed the one he had struck as he ducked beneath a poison sting from the second one. The third Flybeamon tried to help his 2 fellow Digimon, but Naruto threw the Flybeamon he had grabbed. He then jumped after it and used the Digimon as springboard to reach the other 2 in the air, which was quite high up. The Flybeamon twisted their bodies to avoid the lariats that Naruto planned to use. Naruto flew past his targets and then formed a cross-shaped hand sign. "Kagebenshin no Jutsu," he yelled. The copy of the blonde formed in a puff of smoke and then threw his creator at the Digimon. Naruto held out his arms and performed the lariat again, this time succeeding and bringing both Flybeamon to ground level. The 2 Flybeamon buzzed their wings in pain before Naruto backflipped in order to avoid the bolts of red lightning from the other 2 Digimon. The 4 Flybeamon then rose up into the air, a bit lower though because they were injured. Naruto dodged an attack as one Flybeamon tried to run him through with its stinger. He jumped backwards, but the Flybeamon continued to follow him. Naruto quickly formed a Kagebenshin. The clone took the attack through its chest before vanishing in a plume of smoke, and Naruto charged through the cloud of white with a rasengan in hand. The sphere of chakra plunged into the chest of the Flybeamon and sent it spiraling away. Naruto quickly formed hand signs and ended on Hebai, snake. Daten, Doryuden no Jutsu, he roared, and then Dragon of Mud and Rock formed before swallowing the Flybeamon and then diverting its attention to the remaining 2. Lightning Stinger, the insect Digimon cried in a desperate attempt to stop the Earth Dragon. But it was no use and the Beast of Earth swallowed them as well before the exploding tags Naruto had placed on the dragon burned out and a large explosion formed as the dragon self-destructed, killing the Digimon as well. Gatomon and Dorumon were busy with the 7 Flymen. Due to their quickly regenerating stinger and their numbers, Dorumon and Gatomon were forced to dodge for most of the battle. Gatomon and Dorumon quickly jumped into the air as the brown stinger attacks nearly impaled them. Dorumon then grabbed Gatomon and threw her at one Flyman. "Lightning Paw," she yelled, and then impaled the insect through its head before jumping and flipping in the air in order to avoid a rain of stingers before impaling another with her claws. Dorumon then landed and fired a multitude of metal spheres. Metal Shoot. He yelled and the spheres flew through the air and impacted with 2 of th flymen. The remaining 3 buzzed, their wings flapping with powerfully before a purple mist coated their vibrantly colored wings. Poison powder, they yelled. Dorumon and Gatamon's eyes widened. They were surrounded by the 3 and couldn't escape unless they planned to get skewered for their troubles by a stinger. Naruto's eyes flashed red and he rocketed towards his Digimon before kicking straight through the skull of a flyman, and then he formed 2 Cagemanshins without hand signs. He then flashed through hand signs. FUNN. He and his Cagemanshins yelled and the great gusts of wind formed a tornado that used its suction action to suck in the purple mist. Naruto then flashed through hand signs again. FUNN. Furyuendan no Jutsu, he cried out, and then tornado fashioned itself into a wind dragon that was edged with purple from the poison powder. The dragon sliced and poisoned the 2 remaining flymen and ended their lives as they became red flakes of data. Naruto landed on the ground and walked towards his partners. "Are you guys okay?" he asked. Dorumon and Gatamon nodded. "Hi, arigato," the 2 replied. Naruto then took off the makeshift necklace he used with Gatamon's D-Arc. "I'm going to have to hold on to this," Naruto said, and then handed it to one clone. "It might get damaged in a fight." "You're right, that thing's is too dangly. It was nearly hit by the stingers from those flymen before," Gatamon said. The Cagemanship then left to hide nearby a tree within the baseball field. However, the trio noticed something. "The digital field is still here," Gatamon realized. "That means there's more of them," Dorumon growled, his rounded pupils becoming vertical slits. Naruto gritted his teeth in frustration as he saw the fountain of data arise from the earth again, and this more than a dozen of each of the insect Digimon appeared. Flybeamon and flymen alike rising out of the abyss in a swarm of red and yellow. The insects buzzed their wings ready to strike. Kyuso Naruto drew 2 kunai and coated them with wind chakra, forming a chakra blade extension. The blades humming from the wind-natured energy. However, before any one of the combatants made a move, there was a blonde blur that appeared in front of the trio. Diamond Storm. A circle of shining white energy formed in front of the golden-furred fox as the energy morphed into the shape of diamond crystals. Just as pretty, and just as deadly when as sharp as they are. The barrage of diamonds flew towards the swarm, causing them to scatter as some were knocked down by the attack. Renamon then ran towards the downed ones and her paws were alight with blue flames. Tower Paw. She crashed her fists and feet against the bodies of the downed insect Digimon, causing them to explode and scatter into red flakes of data. "Is this just your fight or can anyone join in?" Renamon asked with a smirk. "Take them down," Naruto roared as he smiled at Renamon. Renamon's glacial blue looked into Naruto's sapphire before giving the shinobi a wink before the 2 charged into the fray. Dorumon dodged the red bolts of lightning from numerous flybeamon before countering with metal orbs. He then reached one flybeamon and leaped into the air, his jaws wide open. Dino Tooth. And the dragon Digimon's sharp teeth dug deeply into the neck of the armor Digimon, breaking through the red armor exoskeleton and causing it to burst into red flakes of data. He then backflipped before landing on the back of a flyman, and as a result of his landing, he pushed off so hard it grounded the insect before it dispersed into red flakes as Dorumon used metal shoot on it. He then slammed his tail against the face of another flybeamon before slashing its throat out. He kicked the bottom of the head of a flyman that attempted to bite into him before twisting it and using the down Digimon as a shield to take the hit as red bolts of lightning and flying stingers from flybeamon and flyman respectively embedded themselves into the body of the now dead flyman. Dorumon landed on the ground and rolled to absorb the shock of falling from such a high height, which also aided in his evasive action as 3 flymen tried to impale him with their stingers. Brown Stinger. The flymen yelled simultaneously. Dorumon dodged and countered by opening his jaws. Metal Shoot. And then steel orbs met the organic weapons before Dorumon's pupils became vertical slits as they were previously rounded. He spun on his heel and grabbed a stinger that was aimed for him and used it to block the other stingers from the other 2, and then threw and it was impaled through the body of the flyman that had originally launched said stinger. Dorumon then fired 2 more orbs of tempered steel and destroyed those 2 flymen with a toothy smile on his face. Gatamon backflipped as she avoided a barrage of stingers and lightning bolts before her claws glowed with white light. Lightning Paw. The feline roared and slashed through the hardened shells of the flymen and bringing one down before jumping onto another and another each time she impaled them with her claws. She then front flipped over the attempted poison sting attack from a flybeamon and was quick enough to land on its back before it flew off. "You," Gatamon said in a sing-song voice. Flybeamon looked up and seemed to gulp before a flash of silver and black crossed his vision before Gatamon stabbed her claws into the Digimon's face. Then she jumped off the flybeamon as it turned into data flakes before flipping in the air towards a few flymen that were surrounding Dorumon in the air. Nico Kick. Gatomon spun in a 360-degree angle and planted her glowing white feet, paws into the faces which carried the force to knock the teeth out of a Tyrannomon. The heads of each flyman snapped upwards with a crack being heard as their necks snapped, and they fell to the ground as crimson square flakes of data. Gatomon then smirked at Dorumon. "Arigato," Gatomon Dorumon said before biting into the neck of a fly beamon. "No problem," she replied before front flipping over a charging flyman and impaling it with her claws. Naruto smirked as he slashed through each and every insect Digimon with his wind chakra enhanced kunai knives, slicing through the tough armor of the insect Digimon like a knife through butter. Naruto smirked as he twisted his kunai into a reverse grip and threw one of his kunai. A small whirlwind formed as the kunai broke the sound barrier from Naruto, channeling chakra into his arm muscles to increase his throw's power as well as the kunai's. Newton's second law was then applied as the rate of change of momentum of the kunai was directly proportional to the force which acted upon it and moved in the direction of that force, being Naruto's throwing the kunai. In other words, his kunai went through and through about 5 Digimon before going through a tree, and a boulder before landing on the ground in a crater. He then flipped in the air and threw his other kunai and flashed through hand signs as he saw a large amount of fly beamon race towards him. Kunai Kagebenshin no Jutsu. One kunai became 100 before they impaled all the Digimon and sent them packing as red data flakes. The group of 4 then regrouped in a tight circle in order for all the insect Digimon to gather in one area. Naruto then released a high-pitched whistle and his Kagebenshin that was hiding with Gatomon's D-Arc appeared. Arigato the blonde thanked his copy before it gave a salute and disappeared in a plume of smoke. "Okay Dorumon, Gatomon, attack plan 17," he yelled out. The 2 Digimon nodded. Naruto quickly flashed through hand signs and his finger sparked with yellow and blue sparks of electricity. "Dorumon," Naruto ordered. The dragon rookie nodded before aiming upwards. "Metal shoot." Dorumon fired a series of metallic spheres in a circle formation before Naruto immediately formed his attack later on. Raten, Doutsu, lightning style, conduction. Random bolts of blue and yellow electricity flew from Naruto's fingers before becoming attracted to the metallic orbs floating above, and then allowed them to glow from the charge in them. "Gatomon, I'm on it," the feline yelled. Renamon's eyes widened in awe at the teamwork these 3 were using. Such strength when with companions, she thought, as Gatomon floated in the electromagnetic field generated from the floating orbs of steel, which in turn allowed the orbs themselves to levitate. Naruto then took out Gatomon's D-Arc and drew a card. Digimodify, Imperialdramon Paladin Mode's Omni Sword. The card was slashed through the D-Arc. The bronze D-Arc scanned the card before transferring the card's abilities to Gatomon, and in the feline Digimon's hands, she held the great weapon of Imperialdramon Paladin Mode. Gatomon held the glowing white and gold blade before spinning and creating a twister of white and gold. The metallic orb spun also and drew the attention of the entire swarm that remained. Naruto quickly took out 2 scrolls. He opened both. The first was blank while the other had seals on them. He pumped chakra into the second scroll and a bottle of his father's sealing ink and his special seal drawing brush appeared. Naruto dipped the brush in the ink and with the precision of a sealing master he drew a multitude of kanji and other seals before sealing away the ink and brush away when he was done. He then flashed through hand signs and slammed his palm on the scroll and pumped chakra into the seals. Fuin Jutsu, Fuin no Yanhagosha, Sealing Jutsu, 4 Guardian Seal. Then 4 golden shields appeared before the tornado of gold and white could harm them as they harmed the swarm. The shields taking on the shape of a box. One had the image of a turtle, one was a phoenix, the other a tiger, and the 4th was a dragon. Collaboration Jutsu. Gatomon cried out the name of the attack. Tenrai Denjishaku Arashi no Jutsu, Collaboration Jutsu, Divine Electromagnetic Storm Jutsu. The metal spheres began to glow brighter before the tornado expanded, not harming Renamon, Naruto or Dorumon as they were in the shield. The tornado sucked in the fly beamon and the flyman into the tornado due to the suction and the pull of the electromagnetic field. The insect Digimon were then caught in a large lightning storm, and with a flash of light, the storm died down, revealing a slowly rotating Gatomon who fell to earth from using so much energy with the Omni Sword. The blade vanished into data as she fell. Dorumon quickly, and to her surprise, used Renamon as a springboard to reach the feline Digimon. "So tired. Did I do the jutsu good, Dorumon?" she asked. Dorumon chuckled before landing on the ground. "Yeah, you did great." Gatomon nodded and nuzzled Dorumon's face as she fell unconscious. Dorumon forced down the blush that threatened to appear. Then the 4 heard a gasp. They all turned to see. "Rika-chan, Rika," Renamon and Naruto exclaimed. The red-haired girl looked downcast. Renamon was strong. "She doesn't need me," the girl thought as Kalumon was standing next to her. Takato and Henry, along with Gilman and Terrorman, had arrived on the scene a few seconds before Rika, and were able to see when the electromagnetic storm appeared and were staring in awe at the wide crater they were in. It wasn't deep, but it was wide. Renamen was about to leave as the place began to get tense from the aura between her and Rika before another digital field sprung up. A large Digimon in the image of a harpy appeared. Rika took out her D-Arc and scanned the Digimon. Harpamon, an armor-level Digimon whose Wind Seeker attack is deadly, and she is quite accurate with the thing Rika read. She watched as Renamen ran towards the harpy Digimon and leapt into the air. Harpamon dodged the punch to her face before catching the fox Digimon with her talons and threw her down to the ground. Renamen growled as she remembered what Impmon told her. The strength is within me, she thought as she closed her eyes and began to concentrate on bringing out that power as she fell. Her glacial blue eyes then snapped open. Renamen rolled with the fall to avoid a Wind Seeker attack. The wind blast crashed into the ground before Renamen jumped and her paws caught alight with the ghostly blue flames. Tower paw, Renamen yelled before slamming a flurry of punches against the face and stomach of the half-bird, half-human Digimon hybrid. Then Renamen spun and slammed a powerful roundhouse kick to the face. Harpamon let out a shriek from the pain as Renamen landed on the ground. It worked, Impmon was right. I wished for strength and it came to me, Renamen said. Renamen then ran and performed a Diamond Storm, injuring the Digimon further before performing an axe kick sending the Digimon to the ground. Renamen was about to finish Harpamon off, but froze as a thought came to her. I may get stronger from absorbing data, but once it's all over, what am I to do? I will be able to digivolve and fight for myself, but what is my purpose once I have achieved this? However, the blonde Kitsune was too distracted by this development that she didn't notice Harpamon taking to the skies again. Think we should tell her she's about to get hit? Dorumon asked. Maybe, or we could let Renamen and Rika-chan see that they actually need each other to become strong, Naruto suggested. Dorumon thought and smirked. I like your way better. Well, of course, it's my way, Naruto said. Dorumon chuckled and heard the battle cry, more like a screech to other ears though, as Harpamon flapped her wings with a powerful forward thrust. Wind Seeker. The wind crescent materialized and the concentrated wind blast connected with Renamen. The Kitsune let out a cry of pain before skidding along the ground as she held her own against the attack. But it still hurt like hell. Harpamon then rushed downwards and crashed into Renamen, sending her to the ground. Harpamon then thrust back her talon-covered feet and thrusted forwards. Renamen rolled to the side to avoid it before having to roll to the other side to avoid the other talons on her other foot. This kept up for a while as Rika watched in horror. No, Renamen. Rika's violet gray eyes stared before she shook her head and steeled her nerves. When the times comes, you will know what to do. Rika withdrew the kunai Naruto gave her from her pocket and gripped it tightly. I know what to do. The fiery-tempered girl rushed towards the Digimon and Henry and Takato stared in shock. Rika, Mateo, what the hell are you doing? Takato yelled. Their words fell on deaf ears as Rika continued to run, and then she raised the kunai and with a yell she stabbed the kunai into Harpamon, right between the wings. Harpamon let out a cry of pain as Rika took out the kunai and stabbed her again before the Digimon threw her off. Rika rolled on the ground and stared up as Harpamon screeched. Foolish human. The harpy Digimon descended with a shriek. The crimson triangle on Kaluman's forehead began to shine, and its crimson light bathed the grass to make it look like it was covered in blood. Rika's D-Arc glowed in her pocket, and the screen released a white light. Digivolution. Renamen digivolved too. Renamen was ensirced in a blue egg of data, and her skin peeled away to show her larger, stronger form beneath a wireframe pattern. Skin then reattached itself to give form to the champion level of Renamen. The egg then exploded as Renamen's form changed to resemble a large golden and white-furred kitsune with the edges of the white fur that glowed with mystical blue flames on the paws. Instead of one tail, 8 more had sprouted out, now 9 blonde-colored tails, each tipped with white fur that seemed to also glow with mystical blue flames just like her paw fur. The bottom of Kyuubimon's mouth was white and 2 purple slash marks were shown underneath her still glacial blue eyes, and a large white mane extended along the entire length of her neck. The yin-yang symbol was shown above each of her 4 legs, and one lay on the center of her forehead. A white and red rope tied in a bow with 2 golden bells attached to it was wrapped around her neck. Kyuubimon, the large 9-tailed kitsune, howled as she charged Harpamon and tackled Harpamon to the ground. Harpamon managed to wiggle out of the kitsune's grasp, but Kyuubimon couldn't catch her again as the armor-level Digimon took to the skies and flapped her wings with powerful movements, building up wind currents into a single crescent shape. Wind Seeker. The wind blast descended upon Kyuubimon, but Kyuubimon spread out her tails, each one alight with ghostly blue balls of flame. Foxtail Inferno. The attack broke through the wind blast as the Foxtail Inferno used the wind in order to increase its already blazing hot temperatures. The attack crashed into Harpamon and reverted her into red flakes of data. However, Kyuubiman didn't absorb the data as she walked up to Rika. You didn't absorb her data? Rika questioned. The giant Kitsune shook her head. No, Rika, I've realized that I do not need data in order to become stronger. As long as you and I are together, Rika ... It is then I am truly strong. Kyuubiman smirked. Rika chuckled. Well yeah, with me as your tamer, there's no one that can beat us, the red-haired preteen said. The two chuckled while Takato, Henry and their partners watched in confusion. What happened to our ice queen? Terrierman asked. Henry sighed. Terrierman, the Asian boy, whined. Momentai, Henry, you know you want to know what changed her evil ways, Terrierman told his tamer. Rika and Kyuubiman smiled at each other before turning to the backs of Naruto and Doruman as they were leaving. Naruto and Doruman turned back and nodded in approval to the two females and then headed back for their apartment. On did they? Nighttime Hypnos HQ. After Gatam had rested to her full health, our protagonist and his two Digimon partners appeared at the Hypnos building and looked around for anywhere in besides the front door. However, when they were about to give up and use the damn door, they heard the sound of wind blowing coming from inside the building as it left the infrastructure. Ventilation shafts, the three thought. Naruto then grabbed the two and after channeling chakra into his feet he scaled the vertical surface of the building as he reached the vent on what appeared to be the second level of the extremely tall building. Naruto looked at Gatam who nodded with a smirk. Her foot glowing white. Nico kick. The kick broke through the vent and allowed them access into the building. The trio entered the vents and crawled through them. Naruto sniffed the air in the vents before catching on to Yamaki's scent. I got his scent, he whispered to the two Digimon. The three followed the maze of aluminum and steel before coming to a drop. Mateo, stop, he said, but the two didn't hear him as they pushed him over the edge and also caused themselves to fall also as they had tried to grab the heavier human as he fell. Doruman and Gatam screamed, but Naruto quickly grabbed them over their mouth and channeled chakra into his feet and planted his feet along the walls of the downward vent. Naruto winced as he was forced into a split, which really hurt. Are you guy insane? Alert, the entire building, we're here, why don't you, he growled. Doruman and Gatam chuckled in nervousness. Their tamer sure was scary when he was mad. Naruto quickly dropped down before bending his knees as he landed in order to help stop his landing from making too much noise. His ears then twitched as he heard voices on his left. Naruto motioned for his partners to follow him. The two complied with their tamer and found themselves looking through a vent in a laboratory. In the laboratory was a large generator which had a large amount of electrical equipment and scientists running about, talking about the wild one they had found in a parking lot. Dark Lizardman, Naruto thought. He then saw most of the room which was in front of the generator was full of a bluish-green liquid that was obviously not water. Probably some sort of liquid that is non-conductive since the liquid would be covered with electrical charge if it were aqueous, the blonde thought. Then he growled as he saw the man he was looking for. Yamaki-san. One of the lab assistant cried out. What? The blonde owner of Hypnos asked in annoyance. Are you sure you want to do this? I mean, we could study the creature and learn about it, the lab tech said. Urasai, Yubaka. I make the orders here, and I say we destroy every particle of that thing so as to obtain the information which we so desperately require, in which we could be able to destroy those beasts that those tamers are calling Digimon. Yamaki growled. It's not even worthy to be called an organism. But Yamaki-san, it is. It has a body and is therefore labeled as such. Don't argue with me now. Now get the data analyzer ready, the lab tech sighed and complied with his boss before turning to the control board. He flipped a few switches, turned knobs and pressed the big red button. The data analyzer suddenly whirred to life and Dark Lizardman was awake in the data analyzer. No please, don't make me go back ahhh. The flaming lizard Digimon screamed in pain as its data was analyzed and then its body destroyed. Sir, analyzing the data from the Digimon is complete. However, we only destroyed its body, not its data entirely, the lab tech said. Yamaki nodded. Destroy what's left, leave nothing behind. I have to oversee the information on our file about file alien, Yamaki said. So does he know? Naruto asked himself. Know what? Gatam asked, her blue eyes wide with curiosity. Oh, well, remember Gatam. Naruto is from another universe and therefore there are no records or information about him. He's hoping that this Hypnos or whatever this place is called doesn't have much on him, Doruman explained. The feline nodded. Naruto then turned around and followed Yamaki's scent through the ventilation system and realized the man was heading upwards. The blonde and his two Digimon waited a few seconds as the room cleared out. Naruto then burst through the vents and jumped onto the floor, and signaled for his Digimon partners to do the same. However, as they did, a lab tech had come back. Forgot my files, the lab tech grumbled, and then he spotted an orange and black color in his peripheral vision. Naruto blinked as the man spotted them. Naruto growled before vanishing in a blue of speed as the man was about to squeal, and with a quick chop to the neck, the man was unconscious. Naruto then positioned him so it looked like he fell asleep on his desk. Naruto then sneaked through the door with Doruman and Gatam and then found the elevator. Naruto watched as the elevator went to the top floor. It's always the top floor, Naruto groaned before looking around the hallways. There was nobody there and the lights were off, so Naruto quickly channeled his earth-natured chakra and punched the steel door, bursting it open. He then grabbed Doruman and Gatam before channeling Kyuubi's chakra into his feet, as his normal chakra would only make him go slower, well slower in terms between his and Kyuubi's chakra. The shinobi clung to the wall and began to climb up it using all fours as the two Digimon hung onto his head and back respectively. The orange and black blue raced up the elevator shaft until he came to the base of the elevator and punched a hole in it. He then spread it out and allowed he and his Digimon partner to climb out. He then pried the door of the elevator open and walked out. The three walked along the hallway as Naruto followed Yamaki's scent. So this Yamaki guy has been plotting to destroy Digimon and ... he's been keeping tabs on me, the blonde thought. Naruto cracked his knuckles and walked towards the door that automatically slid open, as it was an automatic door, and he and his Digimon stared at all the electronic equipment in the room. There were computer-generated graphs, a large screen that featured something called Juggernaut, but Naruto didn't care about these things. His mission was a simple hit and run. Destroy the equipment that held information on him and leave. He sneaked through the room without Yamaki and Riley noticing, both of which who were busy analyzing the data on him on a screen. Naruto looked as they updated the information on him. Doruman and Gatam were by his side watching along with him. The three were using all their stealth as they observed the screen. Name: Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Age: approximately 13 years old. School: Shinjuku Junior High. Physical appearance: spiky blonde hair, blue eyes, seems to be average height, 3 whisker-like scars on each cheek, usually wears a black t-shirt with an orange dragon and orange flames on it, a pair of black, navy blue pants, a belt with a crimson X as a buckle, and a pair of orange and blue sneakers. Blood type: O. Skills: high levels of stealth, hand-to-hand combat. Weapons experts, usually with shuriken and throwing knives, can manipulate the elements of fire, water, wind, earth, and lightning, can erect force fields of some kind. Possesses enhanced senses, strength, speed, reflexes, stamina, and endurance. Wild One's associates. First Wild One appears to be a purple and white furred dragon with a red gem embedded at its forehead. Has enhanced senses and can fire metal spheres from its mouth. Is very adept at hand-to-hand combat and can fight on even terms with other Wild Ones larger than itself. Extremely dangerous. Second Wild One resembles an Egyptian cat with 2 extremely large forepaws and ring worn on its tail. Has enhanced senses and is adept in hand-to-hand combat, able to take down Wild Ones bigger than itself. Extremely dangerous. Known family members: unknown. Danger level: extremely dangerous. Naruto, Doruman, and Gataman's eyes widened. Naruto: they know all of this, how come you haven't done anything? Doruman whispered. Because I thought after we ditched them in the park where we met Raidramon, they would leave us alone, and also they appear to be taking this information only when we fight the Digimon that bio-emerged, Naruto replied. Well, that's partly your fault for them to receive this much information. But Naruto, they might have backups, so take down the girl. Destroy the information and the computer and then take the man down. Threaten him to tell you where the backups are and then destroy those. Gataman smirked at her plan as she saw the 2 males stare in awe. Good plan, Gataman, Doruman uttered. Arigato, Doruman, you're always so good to me, Gataman said as she hugged the dragon Digimon. Okay, you two can flirt later, now come on, Naruto said. Doruman blushed while Gataman released Doruman from the hug and winked at him. Doruman would have fainted from the rushing of the blood to his head and face, but managed to not faint. Naruto looked at Digimon and then held up one finger. Then he raised a second, and then with a third he made the motion to attack. Naruto and his Digimon blurred out of sight. Riley and Yamaki were watching the screen until they saw multiple weapons slam into the screen and keyboard and frying the circuits. Naruto formed hand signs before firing water bullets at the computer. The computer fried from being soaked and destroyed. Riley and Yamaki were completely off guard, even more so when Doruman appeared and chopped Riley in the back of her neck and knocked the red-haired woman out. Yamaki was about to turn, but froze as he felt the coldness of Gataman's claws at his throat. "Heh, just like you beasts to threaten us defenseless humans," Yamaki chuckled. "We are not beasts, human," Doruman growled. Naruto dropped down from the ceiling and landed on the cold, stone floor. "Now then, Yamaki, how do you know my name?" "The same way you learned mine, by spying on the other," Naruto replied with a foxy grin. His eyes flashed red before reverting back to blue and back to red. The irises remained crimson, because Naruto really needed to get that information out of the blonde man. Now listen here, Yamaki. I know you have made backup information of this information you have on me. Where is it? What makes you think I'll tell you? The shades-wearing man said. Naruto chuckled before revealing his claws and held them up to his throat with Gatomon's own. Because if you don't, I will have Gatomon, and not to mention myself, slice open your throat, Naruto growled, the crimson aura of Kyuubi's Yaokai surrounding him. Naruto suddenly froze as he heard the sound of a click. It was faint, but he heard it and looked to where it came from. Yamaki's glasses. Naruto ripped off the glasses and crushed them, and the circuitry for his camera broke apart. Remember, Yamaki, you wrote down I have enhanced senses. That little click just gave you away. Now tell me what I want to know. Yamaki sighed and chuckled. No, Naruto palmed his face before grabbing Yamaki by his collar, Gatomon jumping down from his shoulders, and watched Naruto punch the man in his face. Listen here, you don't want to make me angrier than I already am, and you won't like me when I'm angry, the Jinchuriki said. Yamaki gulped as he nearly pissed his pants, feeling the killing intent coming of Naruto in waves, and then he saw Naruto's eyes glance to Riley and his eyes widened. If you don't answer, I know some very sexually deprived people who would love to see this little piece of ass, Naruto said, grazing Riley's face. Apparently Kyuubi's influence was affecting his vocabulary and his dark nature was coming through. Yamaki shook his head. Alright, I'll tell you. It's in the secondary hard drive, and there are 2 flash drives in the bottom drawer of the desk. Riley's sitting at Naruto smirked before reaching into Yamaki's pockets and pulling out the other floppy disks and flash drives from the man's pockets. I'm not stupid, Yamaki, Naruto said, and then crushed the data on him. Naruto then saw Dorumon and Gatomon destroy the secondary hard drive and found the 2 flash drive and stomped them into pieces. Naruto's eyes flickered from crimson to blue before they settled on their original sapphire color. Well, we'll be seeing you around, Naruto said. He then dropped Yamaki on his ass on the floor before he took Dorumon and Gatomon and vanished in a swirl of wind and leaves. However, although Naruto was able to destroy the programs on himself, he failed to remember about the Digimon destroying program. Yamaki reached into his shoe and pulled out a floppy disk and a CD, each labeled with one word, Juggernaut. Yamaki chuckled. Once he finished downloading this large amount of data into the main hard drive, all Digimon will be eradicated and the world will be free of those digital scum. Yamaki walked over to the main hard drive and inserted both CD and floppy into the main hard drive. He watched the program load itself and then went to reach for his cigarette lighter when he knocked over a stack of floppies that Riley had organized to very nicely and in alphabetical order too. Yamaki sighed and picked up the floppies until he came to a silver-colored floppy. His dark-colored eyes stared at the name on the floppy. X program, he questioned. He looked at the floppy and found a note stuck to its back. To whomever reads this letter, this is the floppy containing a prototype data-destroying program. This X program requires the encryption key 774,657,473 #8x9. It destroys all unwanted data, and unless stopped using the encryption key I have written here, this program cannot be stopped. The encryption key to stop the program is 9998465367263. Use only when necessary. This program was banned because it caught a virus and nearly destroyed the entirety of cyberspace. But before we banned it, I managed to add an antivirus program into the X program and destroyed the virus, making it safe to use again. May you use it well, whomever you are, Dr. Yugito Takanadressel. Yamaki smirked. If he could incorporate this program into the Juggernaut, he could make an even more potent data-removing program. Juggernaut X, he would call it. Yamaki's not good with names, but he wondered why the certain letters were in bold. He shrugged. Now to upload this into Juggernaut. Yamaki did so, and by tomorrow evening all the necessary components of Juggernaut X would be completed. Next day evening. It was Saturday and the 4 Tamers were relaxing and enjoying each other's company, even Rika. It was around 5 o'clock, so the sun was still shining high in the sky. This is nice, the 4 of us and our Digimon all together, Takato said as he adjusted his goggles. So Naruto, how did you meet Gatomon and became her tamer? I mean Takato, and I asked about the mystery Digimon when Dorumon digivolved. But you avoided the topic like the plague, Henry said. Yeah, and how does Rika know about Gatomon? Takato added. Naruto and Rika looked at each other as if telepathically communicating with each other. Rika shrugged and Naruto sighed. Okay, I'll tell you. But before I begin, Takato, why did you reveal the existence of Gilman to your friend Jerry? The blonde asked. You showed Jerry Gilman? Rika exclaimed. Yeah, because she's someone I can trust, and although she calls him cute, but she can still be dependable. She hasn't told a single soul, Takato said. Understandable. Also given the fact that you obviously have a crush on this girl, Rika said. Takato blushed while the other 2 males chuckled. How did you know that? The goggle-wearing preteen exclaimed. Girl's intuition. Girl's intuition by ass. You saw him blushing when he mentioned her, Naruto said, causing Rika to slap Naruto upside the head. Itachi, Rika Chan, that hurt. Naruto. Henry and Takato yelled out. Nani? Gatomon, they said. Oh right, well I was fighting a DIGIMON with DORUMON when Rika came along saying how that she came to stop it. And was a bit late considering she lives like 15 minutes from Shinjuku Park, Naruto said, earning him a playful punch from Rika. After that, DIGIMON hit down a tree saying how that he was originally looking for, and I quote, stupid rat of a Digimon before trying to kill her. DORUMON and I managed to save Gatomon while Renamon digivolved into Kyubimon and defeated DIGIMON. After that, I took care of Gatomon and DORUMON helped in her adaptation to the real world. Well, that's the gist of it. Unless you want to go into the battle details. Takato and Henry shook their heads no. Suddenly they felt a large energy wave hit them. They turned and saw their Digimon staring at the Hypnos towers. Above it was a large portal made of blue, green and red data as the sky began to appear, forming a swirl of color. The once blue sky filled to with dark cumulonimbus clouds. Damn it, Yamaki, Naruto growled. What are you talking about, Naruto? Henry asked. The leader of Hypnos. Hypnos is the twin towers over there. Yamaki is their leader and I managed to sneak into their building and I found out about it. Something called Juggernaut. It's supposed to remove all Digimon from our world and now we have to stop it, Naruto said. DORUMON, Gatomon, let's go. Naruto yelled and took off towards the Hypnos towers, his two Digimon following him at his sides. Naruto, Mateo. Takato called out. Meet me there. The blonde called back and then grabbed Gatomon and DORUMON before he channeled chakra into his feet and left them all in the dust literally. Hypnos HQ, Hypnos Twin Towers. Naruto stood in front of the building as he looked up at the portal. Large amounts of Digimon began flying up from random locations towards the swirling mass of data in the sky as they were sent back into the digital world. Then he watched as Gatomon was suddenly being pulled towards the portal by its energy. DORUMON quickly grabbed the feline Digimon and then all of a sudden his old interface gem began to glow on his forehead. A glowing red aura surrounded DORUMON and then a large sky blue colored ball of data floated out of the old interface and then stretched out to form a transparent blue shield. On it read a single word in digicode. X antibody. Gatomon read. Naruto and DORUMON looked at each other with wide eyes. The X antibody, they exclaimed. However, they heard a chuckle as they saw Yamaki walking up to them with a sensor pad in his hand. I see you are witnessing my greatest creation. Juggernaut X, a mixture of the ancient data destroying program, the X program and my own Juggernaut program, Yamaki said. However, as he watched the remaining Digimon go into the portal, a large tear in the sky, as if it were sliced with a knife, leaving a large gash that showed a large amount of data. What's happening? Yamaki yelled into the headpiece he had in his ear. Sir, there appears to be some kind of data interference on the other side. It's a wild one and it appears to much stronger than any of the other wild ones that have appeared. It's breaking through the Juggernaut X and using it as a way to enter our world, the lab tech on the other end said. No, it's not possible. Yamaki roared. I designed this program myself. It's flawless. Bog. I never should have let children hang out with Digimon. Oh Suyer, blame us for your failures, Naruto said, rolling his eyes, but then he began to think. Yamaki mentioned something called the X program, which means that DORUMON's X antibody is a way to fight back the destructive products of the X program, and DORUMON was said to be around before even the sovereigns. From the information Ebonwoman had given me on the digital world and its makeup, there is an old interface which made a few Digimon. DORUMON being one of them. Naruto thought. DORUMON, your X antibody, it's preventing Gatomon and you from going into that portal. Nani? The two Digimon asked. Hi. Yamaki mentioned an X program being interfaced with his Juggernaut, so therefore, your X antibody must have been made to adapt to the destructive products of the X program, since Yamaki said it was a data-destroying program. The X antibody is helping to fight it off, Naruto explained. I see. However, the conversation was ended as large voice filled the sky. I must thank you, human Bakas, for allowing us passage into this world. Humans may have created us, but now you bow down to us, the Digimon. The voice yelled. I'd never serve you, digital scum. Leave our world immediately. Yamaki cried out and then talked to the lab tech. Use the encryption key. Stop Juggernaut X, Yamaki ordered. The lab tech complied and within the lab he tried to, but it wouldn't respond. Sir, it won't respond, apparently, until that wild one reaches to our world. The portal will remain open, the lab tech explained. Yamaki growled and then looked at Naruto's Digimon. This is all their fault. If Yo hadn't arrived in our world, this never would have happened. Yamaki growled and stalked towards Gatomon and DORUMON. Naruto quickly came to their aid and growled at Yamaki. "Leave," he growled. Yamaki gritted his teeth and turned tail and ran. "The sovereign ones shall forever reign over this world as supreme rulers of both digital and real worlds," the voice said, and then a large blue light formed from the portal made by Juggernaut X and onto the roof of Hypnos. "The sovereigns?" Naruto questioned. "Naruto, it's coming," Gatamon and Dorumon said. Naruto glared at the light. This was one battle that needed to be won. But Naruto could only think one thing as he felt the power coming from the bio-emerging Digimon. Will we survive this? So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author KitsuneDragon on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.